Tom Story is a real estate agent who's gone from being a broke 20-something who was living in his parents' basement to building a multi-million-dollar real estate business that's seen year-over-year growth. I'm talking $1 million next year, $1.4 million, year after that, $2.4 million, and he's done it in a competitive market.
Most agents give up too early, and it doesn't have to be that way. They just need more patience. Some real estate agents will have a good month and then think, oh, I'm taking a vacation. I'm like, that's the wrong mindset.
Welcome to $1 Million Business, where we break down what it takes to build $1 million plus business in different industries.
How does a typical homeowner know who the heck I am?
It's a very competitive market, isn't it?
It's extremely competitive. Now when I wake up, the thought process is today, how do I meet with a buyer looking to buy or sell real estate in the next 120 days, a seller looking to do the same, or our team show a property? Because those are really the three money-making activities.
Driving that lockbox over and putting it on the door, if it takes 40 minutes of your time, but you think you're worth $1,000 an hour, it just costs you like $700.
That makes no sense on building a business, right? You should have someone in place to do that for you.
Okay.
So that's where I made the mistake. I brought in more salespeople thinking I need to grow the income side first before bringing in more support. You have to have a plan in place, and this is going to sound so obvious, but you have to be consistent with it. Like that.
Are people who go into real estate known for being consistent?
They are not. They get into it because they don't want to have a boss, and then they fail because they don't have a boss or someone to be consistent to.
In this episode, Tom Story shares how he pulled off what so many of his competitors struggle to do. To go from zero to $1 million real estate business in just a few years in an extremely competitive market. Tom Story.
What's going on? Nice to meet you.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well.
Okay, so I mean, this is your summer home.
It is, yeah. It is.
Most people in their early 30s don't have a summer home.
No.
No.
It was not in the plans, to be honest with you.
You've been in business for a little over 9 years.
Yep.
So you're coming on a decade.
Yep.
You've had year-over-year growth. You're running a multi-million-dollar real estate practice.
Yeah.
When you started out, so I mean, you're in your early 30s now. So when you started out, kind of your early to mid 20s, did you think that you'd be kind of as far along as you really are?
No, my first year in real estate, I was living in my parents' basement trying to survive, is the truth of it. So this was not in the plans. Very happy we're at this part, but this is not how the journey started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've learned a lot of hard lessons along the way, right?
Tons of mistakes along the way and a lot of lessons.
Okay. And we're going to focus on the 10 lessons to get to the $1 million, but we're also going to dig a little bit into the hard lessons learned, right?
100%.
Like the mistakes made.
Definitely.
Okay, let's get inside. Let's sit down. Let's break into this.
Let's do it.
I cannot wait. Okay, so Tom, we are here at your kitchen table.
Yeah.
I have heard, I mean, I'm not a realtor, but I've heard for years and years and years that business happens at kitchen tables. Is that a cliche, or is this actually a real thing?
No, I think that's the reality. Most of the time it's getting to the kitchen table. When we think about in our business how to meet with people and book appointments, we always say, how do we get a seat at the kitchen table? So this is very fitting.
Okay, so the lesson is visibility beats ability. I mean, that sounds nice. It's like kind of like a poem, right? Yeah. It's easy to remember. It's an Instagram hook. Visibility beats ability. What does that actually mean?
Yeah, so the first time I ever heard this, I actually disagreed with the thought process of it. But then now I'm getting to the point where it's like, if I could have 3 words printed out looking at any point, it would be these 3 words in this order. So when you really break it down, it's like the visibility is the marketing, or how someone knows who you are and what you do. And then the ability is like, well, when you get the opportunity to show them what you do and who and everything like that, you got to have the ability behind it. You have the skills and everything in the presentations, but it comes first. So it's like, when I think of like my favorite hamburger, okay? It's a really small joint that no one knows about. So, but why don't they sell the most amount of burgers? They have the ability, right?
Yeah.
And for you, like, what's your favorite food?
Oh, sushi.
Okay, and is your favorite sushi place the #1 sushi restaurant in the world?
No, it's this tiny little place near where my office used to be, and it has the best sushi,
yeah,
and no one knows about it.
There you go. Right, so they obviously have the ability, but the visibility is frankly just marketing, right?
Right.
And I don't necessarily think that visibility is more important than ability, but I do now think it comes first.
You said you disagreed with it when you first heard it. Why is that?
I disagreed with it because I thought like, no, I have to be really good at what I do. I can't just be great at marketing, because then if I get the seat at the kitchen table and I don't know what I'm talking about, that's not going to be very helpful.
Right.
That was kind of the first thing that went through my mind. And then when I broke it down, it's like, okay, for me, or for any real estate agent, how does a typical homeowner know who the heck I am? That's really what you have to think about. So, I sold in a certain neighborhood of the city that I work in, and I really broke down, I started writing things down like, okay, well, how does John Smith know who the heck I am, and why would they ever call me if they're thinking of selling their property? And in our industry, there's a few ways you can do it. You can have all the for sale signs on the street. You can direct mail them, you can send flyers, but to start off my career, I didn't have the money to do that. I certainly didn't have the for sale signs. You could ask other agents if you could do their open houses, because then you could meet people in the neighborhood. Maybe you could create video content. There's many different avenues to it. Some are time intensive and some are just money intensive, right? Like what you're willing to spend on it. But it really just changed my whole outlook, where it's like, I need more people to know who I am to then show them that I'm actually good at what I do.
Right. Now, when we were outside, you mentioned that when you started out, you were living in your parents' basement.
Yeah.
You weren't like, hey, I got all this money,
No.
I can just throw it at all these different things. So if visibility beats ability, and we need to focus more on people knowing who we are, knowing what our name is, knowing where we work, what we do, how do you get started at that?
Yeah, so when I first thought about this, I recognized that I didn't have the money available to spend money on advertising or typical advertising or sending flyers out there or doing bus bench ads and all that.
Is that like what most people think though, or is that what most people do?
Yeah, I think
like,
most people still think
like the bus bench.
You'd be surprised how much that still is out there, and frankly, it still works really well for some people.
It does?
Because less people are doing it now, so now it's cheaper to get that advertising. So then people, like radio ads are making a comeback in real estate. I've noticed that recently. Okay. So you look at, I guess, like where the attention isn't anymore, and you can get in cheaper, and I think that's really interesting. But to answer the question, when I started with this, it's like, okay, I didn't have the money, but I thought I could talk on camera. And I actually thought I had the ability, like on a client service level, on a market knowledge level, on a client experience level, I felt like I was there, and I was frustrated because I wasn't getting the results.
So that's the ability side of things.
That's the ability. So I felt like I at least, maybe I didn't at that point, but I felt like I at least could service people really well. And then I was like, well, how do I get the seat at the kitchen table?
But why do you think you and so many people think that they have to focus on the ability? Right? Like you said that your fear was that I'm going to market, everyone's going to know who I am, and then suddenly they're going to realize, I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Because that's really scary, the thought of sitting down with someone. And listen, real estate is people's biggest asset. And when they're buying or selling this asset, I really take that to heart. I better do a good job for them, right? So even if I was great at marketing myself, if I didn't have the ability to sit down and tell them what they need to know, I would just feel horrible about it, truthfully. And I think when we get into real estate, how they teach us through our courses is how to do all these things that has nothing to actually do with business building, but they do try to teach you the ability aspect of it, which I think is good. So when you get in, you just think, well, I know I'm good. I know all the forms. I know all the paperwork. Why aren't people hiring me? Right. And you realize they don't know who you are.
Right.
Yeah.
Is there something that people can and should do to make sure that when they do show up across the kitchen table from people, that they're showing up the right way? Right, and the reason I say that is I know that we're talking about visibility beats ability, but if ability is the thing that's scaring us or that we're worried about, are there some simple things we can just knock out so that way we can actually start focusing on the visibility, the marketing?
So there's a few data points that are publicly available that all real estate agents have access to. And they're basically, they come out from your real estate board at the end of every single month. And it's, what's the average sale price? What's the average days on market in the area? What's your list price versus sale price ratio? So even if the market's hot and things are selling way over, well, what did it go onto the market at and what did it actually sell for? You gotta know the floor plans and all the different neighborhoods that you sell. And it's really digging into that data. And frankly, it's boring data. But you need to know it, because then when you can come to the table, the big thing that I've found when I'm meeting with a buyer or seller for the first time is I'll sit down there and say, hey, I'm not coming to try and sell you on anything today. I'm going to give you an education session of all the things that I would want to know if I was in your position. And at the end of it, we can decide if we're a good fit to work together. And you're almost immediately you can almost see their shoulders go from here to, they take that breath. And it's oh, this person's not going to try and sell me on anything today. So on the data side of things, there's a few things, and it's really just knowing your micro market. When we see news headlines, and frankly, news headlines are typically scary, especially when it's about the real estate market, the consumer is coming to their own conclusions. I think we have to be the one that takes that information, packages it, and then presents it in a way that the consumer can go, okay, that makes sense for me right now. So it's not just having access to the data, it's fundamentally understanding what the data is trying to tell us and then packaging it correctly so that when you're sitting down with a seller who doesn't care about real estate, they're just trying to sell their house. They move once every 10 years. They're not in this little mindset like I am.
Oh, that is
How
such
to
a good
explain
point
it to them, right?
That's such a good point, that this is their home or their house or a property that they have. It's an asset.
Yep.
They're not in real estate. They just see the big picture news. They don't understand what's happening on the local level. So you can dig into that data, you can get more comfortable at it, and then you can present it in a way that's meaningful to your client.
Yeah, I think that a typical seller or buyer, other than if they're in the military and they're moving a lot, they only need me or anybody in the real estate industry less than 5% of their life, maybe even less than that, because how often do people actually move? If you do the math, I think the stats say it's about once every 7 years, and investors buy more frequently and things like that, but at least 95% of the time they don't need me. Okay, so that's fine. But when I'm creating content or telling them about what's going on in the market, that's why I don't take offense that, oh, they didn't watch my video this month. It's okay, because when the month comes that they actually need me, did I send them something that they deem valuable that month that they would call me in and to talk about selling their house?
This is interesting because people don't need you almost all the time.
Yeah.
But when they do, they really need you.
Yeah.
It's a very competitive market, isn't it?
It's extremely competitive. In terms of the amount of people that are real estate agents or hold real estate licenses has grown dramatically over the last decade.
Yeah.
And especially in major cities, it's very, very competitive, and there's a lot of us out there.
And so the reason I ask those questions is because if it's all about visibility, it means you almost always have to be on, don't you? You can't just do something, get some attention, and then be like, job is done, because you don't know which month the person that you're trying to get in front of might turn on to the fact that they need someone like you. You don't know when people will need you.
Yep.
So this is something, visibility beats ability. You have to be visible all the time, everywhere, don't you?
Yeah, frankly, you have to have a plan in place, and this is going to sound so obvious, but you have to be consistent with it. That's that's why I'm here, telling you about consistency.
Are people who go into real estate known for being consistent?
They are not. They get into it because they don't want to have a boss, and then they fail because they don't have a boss or someone to be consistent to, is the truth of the matter. But yeah, so the system that we would run in terms of making sure people can see us, and then when that moment comes that they actually need us, they would reach out, is very strategic, where it's every single month we will send them something that we deem valuable.
What does that mean?
So in January, I'm going to send you a letter, and because it's tax assessment time in my market. You're going to get a letter that says, hey, the tax assessment just came out. Keep in mind that in my market, the tax assessment is typically lower than the true market value of your property. If you'd like us to fight the assessment for you, we can, but if your tax assessment goes up, your taxes go up as well. People are like, oh, no, don't fight it then, right? So that's a touch point. Now, that's not salesy. It's just me saying to you, hey, do you need help with this? I can help you with that. There's no sale on the line. And so it's coming to them from a place of value, giving them something with nothing. I'm not looking for anything in return. I'm literally just there to help. And that's January. Then February, there's always home shows that happen. We send our clients home show tickets.
Oh, you just buy them and send
Yep,
them?
just buy them and send them.
Okay.
The best ROI in my business is sending home show tickets.
Really?
Yeah, well, if you really break down the people that go and they give it to a friend, and you can put your sticker on with your logo or whatever so they know who sent them. It's so simple. It's fairly inexpensive, to be honest with you. And so it's January, February, then March. What we would actually do for everybody in our database is we would send them a video CMA. So typically,
CMA?
Yeah, so comparative market analysis.
Okay.
So a breakdown of the current value of their property. Now, typically realtors would send this in the mail. And you get in the mail, and by the time they got it, 2 months had passed and things had changed, it's not up to date. And if you think about investing, wealth management, they'll send you these full breakdowns of your portfolio and what's going on every quarter. Why don't you do that with real estate and your assets in real estate? And I think the reason why is because a lot of people didn't look at their house as an asset until the last decade, where house prices have accelerated very fast, and now they really want to know what's going on. And Like people are obsessed with real estate. They want to know what's going on. So we actually call it our health check. So you go to your doctor twice a year or more. You go to your dentist at least once every 6 months. Why don't you speak to your real estate agent once every 6 months and let them know what's going on with the market? Doesn't mean you're looking to sell, doesn't mean you're looking to buy, but like, I think people with the stock market like to look at their phone because they can see it every day. For whether that's a good thing or not is another whole conversation. But real estate, they don't know. It's like, it's this big asset, they live there. So what we'll do, we'll actually send them a video and I'll kind of just screen share. I'll be like a little bubble in the corner and I'll break down, here's the last 3 sales on your street. Here's what's going on with your neighborhood right now. Check out this house, exact same floor plan to yours, but it only had a single car garage and you have a double car garage. This is an idea of what's going on. So I'm not gonna say exactly your house is worth $500,000. So you give them a range.
So this is an example of what you would do, but it sounds like a lot of work.
It is. But if you look at the other avenues of trying to create repeat business or people to come back to you, they're much more expensive.
Okay.
Where this time-wise takes a long time. And when I started, I would sit there and this would take me a long time to get through all these. Now I've hired people in places that can help with this and that kind of gets us to the operations, which we'll talk about later. But it's worth it. It's worth it. Like I really think these basic things of reaching out, staying in touch with people, knowing that you're there for them, especially after you've already done your job. I've already sold them the house. Yeah. But you're staying in touch. And then we could go through the whole year if you really want to, but every month there's something where you think Tom real estate for that split second, and that's all I really care about, so that when that moment comes, maybe they'll reach out to me again.
So you said off the bat that when you first heard this, you were like, that can't make sense, right? Because you're like, ability. No, but this is a sales and marketing career. Yeah. Right? Like, I mean, yes, you're working with people. Yes, you love homes or maybe negotiating or finance or helping people find that perfect place. But at the end of the day, like, you're here to market, you're here to sell, you're here to make it happen. How did you first learn about this? Because this is lesson number 1. Yeah. This is one of the most powerful lessons that we're working through. But how did you first learn about this?
I actually got a really cool opportunity to interview a CFO of a big marketing company like 5 years ago, and I was terrified to do this interview. He had this book coming out, and I kind of filled in for somebody else. And the way he was saying it was visibility, I think, trumps ability. And he kept saying it, and I was like, I don't know, man. I don't know if I agree with this. And then I read his book, and then I dug deeper into it and realized, like, oh my God, he's got something here. And even like a really funny way to put this, driving up here, okay, to my cottage, when I'm hungry halfway through the drive, there's these big corporations that have these whole areas you can stop and grab food at, or you could get off at the next stop, find something healthier, better for you, but this is easier for me. Yeah. And the sad truth is I normally just get off at that one and grab the burger I don't need, right? So that's kind of what it is. It's just like, are you easy to work with? Are you easy to find? And it's not just one thing. It's not like you can send one letter 1 month or do one advertisement or do one open house and magically all these people just reach out. It's doing it time and time again, because those first 2 years, specifically as a real estate agent, I think the fail rate's like 80%. Because people aren't willing to let the plan work itself out. They just give up too fast, or in 3 months they're like, oh, I'm not getting the return I want from this, never mind. And that's when you're building the ability part. And really for me on the visibility side, it was content. I realized I didn't have the money to spend on typical advertising, put myself out there. I'm gonna film myself talking about the market. And so I would just do these little 3-minute videos, and I called them the story report. They were so bad.
Like, do you remember your first video?
Yeah, I was sitting in the basement of my parents' house. That's where I started.
The house that you're living in.
Yeah, I was living in the basement, and I had my notepad in front of me, and I looked down in between, I was bad at editing, right? I put it out on Facebook actually first, I remember. And it actually did really well. Then all these people were like, hey Tom, great video, but your eyebrows didn't move the whole time. Because I was like trying to be this person that I'm not. Yeah. And when you were talking about like always being on, that's what's so amazing to me now is like now when I'm filming videos, I'm wearing t-shirts, I'm wearing a hoodie, I'm wearing a backwards hat. It's all good. And when the people reach out, they know that's who I am. They don't think they're getting suit guy every single time. Yeah. Which really kind of just changed my mindset on everything. And with the content, it's like they watch you, and we talked about they probably don't even need me, right? They don't need me for a while. But if they've been watching for 6 months, 8 months, and then they reach out, they're like, hey, we've been watching you for 8 months, we'd like to work with you. You're like, I didn't know you existed.
So in the back of their mind, they know eventually I'm going to move, eventually I'm going to need to do stuff. So they're starting to like check you out and they're kind of watching and pre-qualifying you. So by the time they do reach out, as you're saying, like they already know you.
They already know you, and it's not like a, hey, we're interviewing 5 realtors, want to get in line. It's, we'd really like to work with you. We've been watching you, we get a sense of who you are, we like your style, and it's less pressure. And again, it's not a sales call.
Right.
They've already made their decision. I'm not trying to sell them on working with me. They're almost secretly dating you online without you knowing, and then they reach out when they're ready, which is like the craziest feeling. And in our industry, when we look at different sources of business, get online leads are like this mythical thing in real estate. It's like if you can convert at 4%, you're a magician. You're like so good at it, and you need ISAs and scrubbers, and there's all this stuff we can get into. But this is a different type of online lead. This isn't just someone that you kind of tricked to get their information on a Facebook ad or something, right? It's like they went out of their way to find you on a platform, to look at your content. When they're ready, they really want to work with you, and that's been a massive part of growing the business.
I have this kind of theory that I want to run by you.
Yeah.
I'm kind of thinking, and I've seen this in other businesses and even in my own business, that when you start to put yourself out through content, not only does it help you become a better presenter or a better speaker or maybe even more comfortable, but it almost creates this like aspirational version of you, like this higher version of you that you have to hit.
Yeah.
And it almost calls you to operate at a different level, to think at a different level, to live up to that thing that you're putting out there. Is that like...
I totally agree.
Is that the case?
Yeah. And I mean, like, I still am myself on camera, but I'm myself plus a bit. You know, like you can't just go
your
like,
first date you.
Yeah, hello, welcome back. Like that'd be boring, right? You gotta make it fun to watch and get better with editing and all that kind of stuff. And I actually really think too, like if you're gonna film yourself talking about something, you better know what you're talking about. Because if you don't, it's out there. People are gonna find it. If you said something that's not true, people will figure out it's not true, right? So it's like you're almost hitting two sides of it. You're getting the visibility because you're creating content, putting it out there, and people are seeing it. And then at the same time, you better know what you're talking about in that content. So it's like you almost, I think I became better at my job, knowing the numbers, knowing the data, knowing the stats, because I had to talk about it. And if I didn't have to talk about it once a week making videos, I wouldn't look at it as often. So I agree. I think it's really helped. And when the people that watch you reach out and they want to work with you, you don't want to let them down. Yeah. Because you've been this version of yourself on camera.
Yeah, you know they're gonna go over to YouTube and comment that you're full of crap if that's the case. That's it.
And I think it's like this 5-prong attack. It's like everything that we do mostly is word of mouth. Like any big purchase I've ever made in my life, I've asked someone that I trust, who do you trust, right? So maybe someone said to them, hey, we worked with Tom, you should go check him out. They find me online, they watch the YouTube videos or whatever, right? And then they check it out and they see that I have reviews online and they can see all that. And then they go check out the other social media platforms and then they see my sign in their area. Like it's almost like all these things at once, and then they get to the point that they actually reach out. And it's almost like in this segment of business, how could your computer or phone just take calls incoming? And it's this mindset shift where like we have to prospect in real estate, we have to put ourselves out there, we have to pick up the phone and make it ring. But you can almost find a way to work it backwards where you're putting out the information, they're searching for it, they're finding it, they're enjoying it, and then when they're ready, they reach back out to you. And that's really on the content side. I think video is already king. I think it's very clear. But if you're a real estate agent right now, not incorporating it in some capacity, you're falling behind.
And what about offline things like door knocking on neighborhoods, or if you sell a home in a neighborhood, you know, you drop a postcard that says, we just sold this home because we know the area, or like being at like local Rotary events or things like that. Is that good, or is that just a waste of time? Or
it still works.
It works.
Less people are doing it. It still works. I know many agents who have built a massive business off door knocking and cold calling and all the things that we would say are old school. Yeah. But it's because they do it consistently and they enjoy it. And the truth is, the reason I started on the video side of things is because I'm not good at writing. I can't write blogs. Like just grammatically, like I know there'd be mistakes. I'd rather talk about it. Where I have some friends in the industry that like love door knocking. They love the challenge of meeting new people, and even some people aren't super nice to them and slam the doors on them, but they love it. So it all works. I think people are getting away from those basics because now there's other avenues which take less time and are cheaper. But door knocking, cold calling, flyers still surprisingly actually work amazingly well. But you have to be doing it every 2 weeks, every month. If you do it and then you wait 3 months, you're just not going to see those results.
We're going to get into lesson 2 in a second, which is the 3 ways to build a real estate business. But before we move on from visibility beats ability, right now, if I'm just starting out in real estate, I would think that's great for you, right? You have a head start. You're already there. The market is so competitive. It's so saturated. What do I do? What would be your number one piece of advice for people who are starting right now?
If they're starting right now, you know how people have retirement parties? You should have a career launch party. You should get all your friends and family together and do a career launch party, get a video person there, document it, and then share it. Because those first 2 years in real estate, they always tell us, work with people that you know, like, and trust. What they forget to tell you is they know you and they like you, but they don't trust you in your new career yet. So those first 2 years, you're really going to be proving to your friends and family that you can almost survive without them. And when your friend buys without you, don't burn a bridge. That's silly. Prove it to them over time.
It's going to hurt so badly.
It hurts. It really hurts. But if you just stick with it, it's almost like those first 2 years when you prove to everyone you can survive without. And some people will, of course, use you throughout that time, but don't take it personally. There's a lot of money on the line.
So who are you inviting to this party if it's all your family, friends, and all those people who won't hire you?
Well, maybe, but I'd still make sure that they know that you're taking it seriously, right?
Okay.
And a lot of new agents, and this will take us perfectly into the next segment, are joining teams off the bat because it's harder to start on your own than maybe it was a decade ago.
Okay, well, let's get into the next segment.
Let's do it.
So lesson number 2 is 3 ways to build a real estate business. Now, this is kind of like business model-ish. It's kind of operations. I am most excited, I think you're most excited by like the sales, the marketing, the cool stuff. But it makes sense for us to just stop for a moment and talk about how a business is structured. Because whenever I sit down with people just getting into business, they're always excited about the things they're excited about. And I always say, what kind of business do you want to build? And I think that's really an important answer, because if you don't know what you want to build, how do you know if you're taking the right steps? How do you know if you're moving the right direction? How do you know if you're even getting ahead?
Totally.
So I've never built a real estate practice. I don't even know if you call it a practice or not, but anyway, a real estate business. What are the 3 ways, and why are these the 3 ways?
I think there's more than 3 ways, but these are the 3 most common ways in which it happens, right? So break it down to number 1. So number 1 is you do it on your own, you're solo, okay? So that means that you wear every hat. You are the marketing person, you are the salesperson, you're the accounting person, you wear every single hat, and a lot of newer agents will start in this role because they can't afford to bring on administrators and they can't do all these other things. And it means that you are trying to find the business, you are then servicing the business, and then you're taking care of all the back end as well.
Right.
And
but sorry, to clarify, this is still you joining like a brand or something, right?
Yeah, so you would still join a brokerage, which is like which takes care of kind of just like the legality of everything and the back end and the insurance and whatnot. So you'd still have to join a brokerage even if you're doing it on your own. You could create your own brokerage one day if you wanted, but if you're still on your own, you're still on your own.
Okay, so this is you being a solo agent,
correct,
as part of a brokerage.
Yes.
Where and I have to imagine that the vast majority of people who practice real estate fall in this category.
They do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And real estate's a lonely business. Like, I think that's one thing no one tells you, because you watch all the TV shows and it's fun and sexy and you see the commissions.
People are busy flipping this and flipping that.
It's
and
not
all great, right?
Yeah. It's not just like nice lunch meetings. Like, it's a lot of like sitting there at your desk thinking like, where's my next deal going to come from? Like, it's terrifying sometimes. And especially when you get started and you're looking at other people that are succeeding, it's like, well, they're not better than me. Why are they succeeding in that level, right?
That visibility beats ability.
There you go. There you go, right? So, and that definitely plays into it. So it's like most real estate agents are trying to do everything. And if you look at most business models for anything else, there's different people in different seats. But most real estate agents, when they start, it's not really like they're running a business. They're just running a transactionary kind of day-to-day thing trying to survive.
Okay.
That's what I would say most people fall into that category.
Okay. And then, so number one is solo. Number two?
Would be partnership.
Okay. What does that mean?
Partnership, I don't think partnerships typically work out very well. And the reason why I say that is like the partnerships that do succeed are husband and wife, you know, mother and daughter real estate team, in the family type of thing. I see a lot of other partnerships where two people will come together that are running separate businesses, and they're both at that point where they're like, okay, I'd like a bit more time with my family. I don't want to do everything. I want to take a vacation and not stress out the whole time. But 50-50 equal partnerships are rarely ever perfectly 50-50. So that's not saying that they don't work. A lot of people build partnerships and they're great, but I've also seen very many partnerships over the years just kind of fade away. So when we break down partnerships, I think a lot of people do it because they think this is the next logical step and they like the person that they're partnering with, but it doesn't mean on a business level that it's going to be successful.
Okay. So solo's number one.
Yeah.
Partner is number two because it seems like a great way to 1 + 1 = 2,
Yes.
but we all know that business partnerships are just like marriages.
Yep.
Very challenging.
Picking your cellmate, basically.
Okay, I wouldn't say that, but
Not for marriage, for business,
okay. What is number three?
Number three would be the team model.
Okay.
Now, the team model, I think right now, if we think about disruptors in the real estate industry, you could talk about all the different names and companies and tech startups that are trying to take a piece of that commission puzzle, right? If I look at actual market share, who's holding the most amount of market share in most of the major markets across North America and the world, it's teams. Because the model used to be that the brokerage would pay for everything, but you were on a lower split with them. So it was like 50% to the brokerage, 50% to you. Over the years with the new models of brokerages, the agent kept a lot more.
Okay.
Up to 80, 90, 100% sometimes with fees built in.
Okay, so the agent is keeping more of the commissions.
Yes.
But then obviously the brokerage is doing less.
Yeah, they're getting less service from most brokerages.
Okay.
So this new team model that's built out is like you're almost building a mini brokerage within a brokerage.
Okay.
So, typically you'd have the structure where you have a team leader, that's someone that pays for everything, they're the name on the door, things like that. And then you have people in different positions. So you'd have buyer specialists, you'd have people that are specialists working with sellers. If you do leases in your market, you have people that would do the leases. Then you've got people that work on the marketing side, on the design side. Like what you're basically building is this miniature business within a business that's already taking care of the back end for you.
Okay.
And teams right now, market share wise, are taking over a lot of the industry because they're almost now providing the training and services that the brokerage used to. But when you join a team, you're giving them a bigger split of any sale that you do.
Okay. So I don't think we need to get too much into the splits and the
Sure.
details and the commissions and things like that. But number one, solo.
Yeah.
I have to imagine most people start there.
They do.
Number two is a partnership, which sounds like it's the attractive, quote unquote, easy way to just think like, 1 + 1 = 2, I'll have someone to help me, blah, blah, blah. But you're saying they may not work all the time because I think people have the hopes that they'll somehow get a team model,
Yes.
which is number three,
Yep.
but the partnership wasn't ever formed that way. Number three is a team model. Where are you right now and where did you start?
Yeah, so I started solo.
Okay.
I started out on my own for those first 2 years.
Do you kind of have to start there? Like everybody's starting
you
only
don't
solo?
have, actually a lot of newer agents now are joining teams right off the bat.
Okay.
So that is becoming more of a trend right now. It's funny, I actually almost did all three models by mistake throughout of it because I didn't know when I first started exactly what I wanted to build, right? I didn't have the education level to figure out off the bat, like, okay, I would have saved a lot of time if I had known what I know now, right? Obviously. Yeah. So I started alone for the first 2 years. I didn't have a partnership, but I had someone come join me that I had known personally, and we built it out. My mistake is that I hired another salesperson before I hired administrative staff. I should have hired an assistant first. Your first hire out of solo to building team should be admin, take care of all the back end tasks. So real estate agents' job shouldn't be putting in the for sale sign, loading the listing, dropping off the lockbox. You could go through a laundry list of things that you do. These are tasks that could be done at different dollar volume per hour. And so for me, as I was trying to build, it was like, okay, if I want to make a certain amount of money, if you averaged out a 40-hour work week, what am I worth per hour to hit my goal?
Right.
Am I doing tasks that could be done for $20 an hour? Yeah.
Right.
I am.
As opposed to $300, $500, $1,000 an hour, whatever your goal is for your hourly rate.
Exactly. And if you're doing those tasks at the rate that you think you're worth, you're actually losing money.
Right. Because driving that lockbox over and putting it on the door, if it takes 40 minutes of your time,
right,
but you think you're worth $1,000 an hour, it just costs you like $700.
That makes no sense on building a business, right? You should have someone in place to do that for you.
Okay.
So that's where I made the mistake. I brought in more salespeople thinking I need to grow the income side first before bringing in more support. And then what started happening with teams, there's different ways you can grow it. I did mine very organically, where because of the content I was creating, a lot of realtors would follow me. And they would reach out and be like, hey, I see what you're doing. I'd like to join what you're doing, and then kind of slowly built out that way. So now we've got to a point with our team where I'm pretty much focusing on content creation, education for buyers, but I'm not showing the buyers properties anymore. We have buying specialists, and then I meet with sellers, and I do that. And then we have 2 newer agents in our market. We're allowed to do leases. So that's actually in my first year how I built up my business. I would just do leases.
Just hustle leases.
Quick money, quick closings, build relationships. You get to know, and you can almost train yourself. Like if you can do 8 leases in a month, you can do 8 sales in a month. Just you make way more money doing the 8 sales. But it's building up that database. And now, 9 years in, all those people I leased to in my first year have done 2 or 3 transactions with me or referred me to their friend because I had that model that stayed in touch with them.
Okay.
Which is really cool to get that repeat and referral throughout the years.
Yeah. See, there's so much to this, and this is what's so interesting, though, because being able to speak to someone at your size, right, multi-million-dollar company, you've gone through the ups and the downs and the making the mistakes to be able to figure this stuff out. But if I'm watching this and I'm just getting into it, one, I see what's possible, which is super, super cool. You're using the team model. You've gone from solo to improper partnership to improper team to now building a proper team. What is the difference between solo and joining a team? That's not quite clear to me.
Yeah, okay.
Like I'm just starting, I'm maybe 6 months, a year, 2 years in, I'm not really doing very well.
Yep.
I definitely know that I need help and support. I'm solo or I'm selling for you. Like
Sure.
Either way, I'm just selling, right?
Yeah, so if you're solo, I think a lot of people hesitate to join a team because they say, I don't want to give away 50% of what I earn to this team. 50% of nothing is nothing. 50% of a lot is still 50% of a lot. So that's typically the mindset that people have to shift to when they join team. It's like, well, do you care how much you make or how much is in your pocket at the end of the day? Like how much you're actually leaving with at the end of it. So solo agents can still perform very well. It's just the whole business is them. If they take a vacation, they're not selling any homes. If you join a team, there's a few reasons why people...
Can you build $1 million real estate business? And I don't mean, obviously we're talking in terms of your commissions.
Yeah.
Can you do that solo?
100%.
You can.
You absolutely can. The difference is we get into this business for 2 things. It's like make money and have a good lifestyle. You can make money, but you're not going to have a life if you do that.
You're just going to be grinding.
And some people love that.
Okay.
And that's what they wake up and they're excited about. And by all means, if that's it for you, do your thing. You can do it. It's a much harder path.
Okay. What I'm hearing is that it makes sense to either join a team or to get yourself as quickly as possible the person who's forming a team.
Correct, because you would join a team for a few reasons. One is just the mentorship of having someone that's done it that you can talk to and talk through things. The second is when you join teams give you opportunities for sales. They give you people that are looking to buy and sell because they have the team model and you're going to be a part of that, right? But you have to give some of it back. And then just the accountability of we hold Tuesday morning meetings for our team and we talk about 3 things. What did you accomplish in the last week? What did you say you were going to accomplish that you didn't accomplish, and why didn't you accomplish it? And what are your goals for this week? Like very basic stuff. But that's kind of our check-in every week. And one of the things I think so great about a team is you sit down, you have to be accountable to each other. You're all there, and it's not as lonely when you have a group of people, all on the same mission.
Okay, we are going to get into team structure later on. We're gonna talk more about sales. We're going to talk definitely more about marketing, as well as lessons that you've learned. For the person who's looking to join a team or the person who's looking to build a team, what are the 2 or 3 must-haves that will help them be able to qualify or quantify if it's the right team for them?
If you're joining a team, I think it's the person that leads the team, you have to have a very, very strong relationship with them.
Okay.
Like I would sit down and ask them questions and ask the person that built the team, well, why did you build the team? Because if you're just coming in to do all the things they don't want to do, then you should be clear on that. And maybe that's the truth, but be clear on that. And I find a lot of agents that join teams will kind of learn the structure in the back end of the business, and then they'll leave and start their own one day, right? So if you're building a team, you also have to look at like, okay, the people that you're bringing in, are they just coming in to learn everything that you know to then go deploy it elsewhere? Are they going to leave you after a few years? Because team retention is huge, and a lot of the big mega teams across North America have very high turnover. So I think it's really knowing, is this a two-way street or is it a one-way street here? Who's getting more from each person, whether it's the team leader or the team member? Those are the questions I would ask on either side.
Earlier you mentioned with the split that sometimes salespeople don't want to join a team because they're worried about their share of the pie.
Yeah.
Right? It's the smaller share, but maybe it's a bigger pie.
Yeah.
Next lesson we're going to get into is profits over revenue, right?
Totally. And that sounds so obvious. It's like I can just skip this segment, but don't, because here's the thing about the real estate industry. We are given these awards when you work for brokerages, when you hit a certain level of sales or commissions or achievement or even just years in the business. And they bring you on stage, they give you this award or they send you on these trips. And what it's doing, and they're very smart by the way, what it's doing is feeding up here. It's feeding the ego. But I know a lot of people that run highly, at least looking at them, a highly successful real estate business that don't walk away with as much in their pocket as they probably should. Because they're doing things just to get this award level, which frankly no one cares about or even knows what it is outside our little real estate bubble here.
Okay.
And they're doing these things in their business just so that other people in the industry look at them in a certain light. And I don't want
I feel like you're speaking code. Basically what you're
Yeah.
saying is they just want to sell as much as possible to win an award, even if it comes at a lower margin?
Yeah, so basically it's like they've spent so much money on marketing and branding and creating opportunity that they're walking away with less than a 10% profit margin. And that doesn't make any sense to me. If you want to be the person with number one beside your name in every real estate photo, fine. And if that's how you want to build the business to then scale back at a certain point and focus more on profits, I can understand that model. I think so many people get into it and they get stuck with this like, well, if I spend $5,000 here and I can make $8,000, my sales will look better, but you made $3,000. You could have done another thing that would have cost you way less and made $10,000. So when I focus on the profits and the revenue, we call it something called GCI, which is gross commission earned.
Gross commission, okay.
So that's your gross revenue, right?
Yeah.
And that's how you're tracked. That's how they give you the awards. That's when you see any real estate thing they're based on that. But that's not what you actually made.
Help me understand the numbers.
Sure.
So let's say that I sold 10 homes.
Yeah.
And each home was $1 million.
Okay.
For easy math. I've sold $10 million of property.
Sure.
Is that the number that I'm celebrating?
No, it's not the total volume of property. Some people will use that as well.
Okay.
They're mostly celebrating the commissions or the actual revenue into their business.
And if I earned a 2% commission, let's say for easy math again, on the 10 million of total sold,
Sure.
then I would have taken home what, $200,000?
$200,000 gross revenue.
And is that the
That's GCI.
GCI? Okay,
Yeah.
so the 200,000, which is the money that's actually coming into my business.
Yeah.
Is that number.
That's the overall, and then, so that exists. Then you pay your brokerage, whatever split you have with your brokerage.
Right.
Then if you have administrative, you pay marketing.
Yep.
And then if you stage your properties, you pay for staging. And now most of these other expenses are a guaranteed recurring monthly or weekly point of expense because you have these services.
Yeah, so there's like accounting fees,
Yep.
and there's insurance,
Yep.
and there's certifications and all of that stuff.
And like, let's say you sold these homes, right? Did they all sell in the same month? Did you do them perfectly once a month? Did you do 6 in one month and 6 in the other? So it's real estate's a clumpy business.
Clumpy.
I
love that word.
My broker of record always uses that, and I love it. He's the guy that owns our company. And he says you can have a great year next month,
Right.
and then you can make nothing for 6 months.
Oh my goodness.
Right? So it's like this thing where some real estate agents will have a good month and then think, oh, I'm taking a vacation. I'm like, that's the wrong mindset. You got to build it out so you can have a consistent month. And I actually think that it's not easy, but you can have a good year as a real estate agent depending on the market. Having a good 5 years is more difficult, and having a good decade is not a lot of people actually do that. How to stay consistent over that period of time. And I think it's focusing on, especially that when the market's really, really hot, you're more of an order taker. You can just kind of do what you need to do to get the results. When it switches, you got to be a salesperson. You got to understand what you're doing. You got to sit down and be able to have the conversations with people that are not great conversations to have. Hey, I have your house on the market right now. We've only had 2 showings. Our comparable just sold $50,000 less than us. Now we either have to go get down there. If the market's trending downwards, they're really tough conversations, and a lot of people can't get through that. That's also where they stop spending money in certain aspects of their business because the sales aren't coming in at the same level. But I think you actually should be pushing your foot harder on the gas pedal.
Let's make this really real then. So if it's about profits over revenue, and if the business is up and down and clumpy, I love, again, that term, and you have these fixed expenses you have to pay, but then there's also all these variable expenses that come up. How do you focus on profits? Where do you focus, I guess, is the question.
I focus on cost per sale.
Okay.
So that's the way I look at it now. In the advertising industry, they talk about it. Just how much did you have to pay to get the opportunity with the consumer? So let's say you make $100. If you had to pay $10 to get that person, whether that was through online or referral or advertising, anything, that's a pretty good cost per sale. It's 10 cents on the dollar, basically, right? If I look at my business percentage-wise, if we're talking about repeat and referral business, I know based on the system that I run, that's a 10 to 15% cost per sale. So 10 to 15 cents on each dollar that I earn.
And do you know that because you've taken year after year just
Correct.
the total number of things, the total amount you spend, divide the two?
Yeah, we track everything very closely to make sure that we can. Now you need a bit of data to have these numbers, but I guarantee you across the board, they're gonna be pretty similar for people. So it's like that to me is the best type of business. Word of mouth, repeat and referral. If I could run my business just on one thing, it's that, 100%.
10, 15% goes to just getting the business.
Just getting the business, that is awesome. Now, if I look at other avenues, so let's say for content creation, that doesn't actually cost me a lot of money, but it costs me a lot of time. And then we talked about earlier, well, what are you worth per hour based on the business you want to build? Well, then you got to factor that in there. So that was your cost. So, for people that reach out to me on YouTube or Instagram or Facebook and other platforms where we're putting out our content, they're probably 40 cents on the dollar. It probably cost me 40 cents to get their business.
Really?
Yeah, because...
But you're calculating your time into that.
That's my time.
Okay.
Actual dollars, it's probably very cheap actually. Yeah. But time-wise, it was expensive.
Yeah.
And then if you look at like new business opportunities or marketing opportunities, if you send direct mail flyers, so you're farming an area, which means like you just every single month you're sending market info.
Just hitting stuff.
But it's got to be consistent. And it's very, very expensive. And then you get the listing, but then you have to spend $5,000 to $7,000 to market the property, which is staging, photos, and you only get paid if it's sold.
Right.
So there's a lot of upfront expenses. So to focus on the profitability aspect, if I'm a real estate agent right now and I look at my business, I am focusing first on trying to master the repeat and referral because I know that's my best return on business, and it's better business because they already know you, like you, and trust you.
Right.
So it's just easier to do.
And that will come more with time.
Correct.
Right. When I got into business back in 2006, like you, it was like, I just need business, feast and famine, feast and famine. And I hit year 4, I hit year 5, and I almost didn't appreciate that people who, the longer you're in the market, the easier it kind of gets, especially if you do good work. The longer you're there, the more people know you. The more people know you, the more they just circle around with you, the more opportunities come your way. And so I'm like year 5, I'm year 7 in business, and I'm still acting like it's year 1 and that nothing's gonna come my way. And then stuff just does. So like that repeat and referral business, I have to imagine gets a little bit easier over time.
Yes.
But you have to fill the funnel still, right?
You have to fill the funnel, which is the visibility aspect of everything. What are you doing to fill the funnel? And then what's interesting too is like, if someone repeats with you, that means that they trusted you, they liked your services, they're showing their faith that they're using you again. If they already worked with you once and they haven't repeated with you yet because they haven't sold their house yet, but they already refer you their friend, there's a good chance they're going to repeat with you also.
Yeah.
They're already referring you. So there's a lot of agents that clump together repeat and referral. I think you got to break it out. Okay, so if you're running a business on repeat, that's great. You'll get that repeat, but you can't guarantee when those people are moving. If 50% of your business is repeat and 50% is referral, that's awesome. But a lot of people are getting a lot of repeat, but not the referral. It's like, okay, well, maybe you're just not asking correctly, or maybe your marketing's not making it clear. So I really think for realtors, it's focusing on, like, if you can find a nice mix of the two, that's what's going to continually grow your business. And when you talked about years in business, my favorite analogy is the race car. So every lap of let's make up a track is a year in business.
Okay, Daytona.
Okay, so first lap, you're starting the car, you're nervous as heck, you don't know any of the corners, and you're like, you spin off or something,
No, you
right?
just got to turn left.
But that's your first year. That's your first year in business. By lap 2, you have a bit more confidence.
Yeah, your tires are warmed up.
You at least remember the first 3 corners. Yeah, your tires are warmed up, all that kind of stuff. And then by lap 3, lap 4, you're like, whoa, this is starting to click in now, right?
Yeah.
And then it gets to the point when you're at lap like 10, year 10 in business, and you can sometimes take a turn for granted, and then you mess up because you're like, oh, I know this so well that I didn't even respect it. And that's when you got to take a pit stop, right? And change your tires, change the body of your car, and whether that's coaching, mentorship, whatever. That's how I like to look at business. And it's beating your lap every year.
Yeah.
Who cares what all the other cars are doing?
I'm going to tell you, you know a lot about real estate. You don't know a lot about driving.
I do
race
not.
cars.
I do not.
I set it up with the NASCAR reference.
Yeah,
I give
sorry.
it all to you. That's cool. So profitability over revenue, you're breaking it down when it comes to the different types of business sources.
Correct.
Yeah. You have to be watching every dollar on the expense side, or what? Like, where else does this play into the business?
I mean, real estate agents are typically not great at keeping their money. They make a lot of money, and it's like, if you do well, then your lifestyle follows behind. So your income goes like this and your lifestyle goes like this. But what you want to do is income goes like this and lifestyle stays like this.
For how long?
Well, I guess as long as it makes sense for you, right?
Until you buy the summer home.
Right, but again, this is an investment into an asset that I'm going to hold for the rest of my life, likely. Like personally, I sell a real estate only to put the money into another piece of real estate. Otherwise, I would keep it forever.
Okay.
But that's probably another conversation. But on the profitability side of things, you have to do profit and loss at the end of every single month. You have to have a bookkeeper. You have to have someone that can tell you the numbers. Because if it's scary to sit down when you run your own business and look at the numbers and be like, either this looks great or this doesn't look great. If someone else can help you with that, I think that's huge. Because when the market shifts, you can have a month where you're still spending the same amount of expenses, but your sales are down 50%. You got to be aware of that, and at least build that into your plan. And you can set yourself up for that by having money on the side and things like that. But I think it's all about profitability. Otherwise, why are you building this business if you're not going to be profitable? I don't understand that.
Yeah, it's a really, really good point, because profitability is the only thing that will give you confidence to make new investments.
Yep.
And the ability to make new investments. You can't hire a team member off revenue if there's no profit.
No.
You can't invest in marketing on revenue. Maybe you can borrow money, but for the most part,
that's risky.
Yeah, and it'll only happen if you can demonstrate that you can actually make money.
Yep.
So this is a really, really great point, especially for an industry that's so sales and marketing focused. I could see how it would be very easy to get into the trap of focusing on revenue, focusing on bringing the numbers in, focusing on doing the big things and looking the part, hoping it'll turn around later, but then actually not at the end of the year be able to hold on to or maintain that working dollars, the working capital you need to be able to make those future investments.
If you're just doing it to fill your ego and not your bank account, I just don't understand why you're running a business. Like, you're a business owner, right? And to be fair, for the real estate industry, a lot of people that get into it maybe don't think of themselves as business owners off the bat. They say, I'm a real estate agent.
Yeah.
You run a business.
Yeah.
You run a business. That's what, and at some point, maybe you want to sell your business. How many real estate agents successfully sell their practice? It's very, very minor, because they don't look at the numbers and figure things out kind of year over year over year, because they don't even know what they're worth. and it's harder to sell a sales business because you can't own a relationship.
Yeah.
Your clients are your clients, right? But you can't own a relationship. But yeah, I think a lot of realtors, if they focused in on the how am I doing a great job for my clients while being profitable, that's how you can grow year over year with repeat referral and then being strategic with your marketing budget.
I love that you just mentioned that most real estate agents or realtors don't think of themselves as business owners. Because what's clear to me spending time with you is you do think of yourself as a business owner. And I'm wondering when that shifted for you, because I can't imagine when you were living in your parents' basement, when you were just getting into this, when you're struggling to get by, when you're making all your mistakes. I can't imagine yourself walking in every day to whatever your laptop at your parents' place or the Starbucks down the street and thinking like, I'm a business owner. So what shifted up here and how did it change for you to be able to start thinking that way?
Well, first of all, it didn't happen right away. I was certainly not a natural out the gate, like just selling all these properties. That's not what happened. I struggled big time in those first few years. You realize is if you look at people in your industry, and for me, there was like a certain few people that I would look at and I was like, okay, well, they're very successful. Why don't I just ask them what they do? And I know that sounds so obvious, but what I found is that when you have those conversations with those people, and I would just like, can I take you for lunch? I'll pay for lunch, whatever. I just have 10, I would like come with my notepad. Like, I have questions for you, this, because I don't think real estate fundamentally has changed in a long time. The goal is still get at the kitchen table with people, build relationships, be good at what you do what you say you're going to do. But the tools are totally different. The tools in which and how we get these appointments booked are totally different, and there's disruptors and other aspects of the industry. But what it was for me is I would meet with these people, and what I realized was they don't know anything that's necessarily different from what I knew. They've just been doing it for longer on a more consistent basis and really focused on like certain aspects of like going all in on this one area instead of trying to spread yourself out everywhere. And then that led me to realizing that the people that are truly successful will tell you what they've done and put it on a platter because they know that like no one will go actually do it. It's actually hard. It's still hard work to get it done.
Right.
And then, I would ask some other people who I thought were successful and they like kind of keep it behind closed doors and be really guarded off. And I think that's when I realized like maybe they weren't actually as successful as I thought they were.
Oh, that is so interesting.
They don't want to share their secrets, but...
So you're suggesting that if you sat down with someone and they were like, well, this is how I do it, they're free and willing to give it because they know how much work it is.
Yeah.
And they're pretty confident most people won't do it. But the people who are guarded might be insecure.
I think so.
Because they may not want you to see the fact that they're just kind of maybe winging it or it's not as good as it should be or what have you. That is really interesting.
I've done presentations to competing brokerages in my market where I lay out step by step my entire business model.
Yeah.
Because I'm okay with it.
Even here today, you're being super, super open and sharing a ton of details.
Because I still know that you can know everything.
Yeah.
You have to then do it. And the execution is massively important. The consistency, the execution, then the patience of like, well, it's not happening yet. When's it going to happen? But knowing that the systems work and you don't have to reinvent the wheel in real estate, you can try if you want, but the fundamentals are there. If you follow them and stick with it and do what you're supposed to do, you will find results. But the fact is the results typically don't happen on the timeline you want them to happen on. They happen when they're going to happen.
It never happens how you think, and it never happens when you want it to happen.
Yes.
But it'll happen.
Totally.
This actually brings us to lesson number 4.
Yeah.
The idea that you need to get mentorship, you need to get coaching, you need to put yourself and surround yourself with people who have done it before as soon as possible. What was happening in your life, or how long along this journey, this 9-year kind of journey, before you were like, oh, I need to take this seriously. I need to take coaching, mentorship. I need to be in the right room.
Yeah, I would say about 2 years in that it really clicked, that I was like, oh, okay, there's something missing here. And I had looked into coaching companies earlier on in my career and just thought like, okay, well, I can't afford this. It's not cheap to do real estate coaching. It costs a lot of money, but it's another investment in yourself, right? Like as you're building out your business. And I remember I sat basically the back row of a real estate conference.
How much did you spend?
To get into the conference?
Yeah, your first conference.
Like $600 or something.
Okay.
And then the yearly coaching
which is
like,
a lot of money.
Yeah, and then if you sign up for the year, it's over $10,000. Like it adds up, right? And I was like, I can't afford this. But then I'm sitting there and I'm looking at the people on stage and they're going through their stories and they're telling you exactly what they did step by step. I'm like, I can do this. I can do this, and I need to put myself in rooms with more people like this, right? Like that was really what it broke down to me. So if I had to look at like one moment where things shifted when I joined real estate coaching, that was probably the best thing I ever did for my career. I really believe that. And not only because of the accountability and the weekly calls and making sure I'm staying on track with it. Like I think real estate coaching is kind of like the gutter guards when you go bowling. Like your ball you can't get off track. They'll keep you going down the straight line. And then you meet people that are also willing to invest in their business in these communities, in these Facebook groups, in these conferences, in these mastermind events. And you're sitting at tables with people that like, I would have paid so much money just to be at the table with. And they're like telling me how they do it.
Yeah.
And it's so crazy to me.
Yeah, they're like, here you go.
Yeah. And they're open to it. I'm like, can I use that? They're like, yeah, just take it. So then I tweak it to make it my own. So like when I look at my business, my listing presentation, which is what I meet with sellers and talk about, that is a bunch of other people's put together that I've created my own version of what works best for me.
Right.
My buyer presentation, my system to stay in touch with my clients I learned from coaching. I owe a ton to real estate coaching.
Do you think you would still be in business without any of this stuff?
I think I would have been in business, but nowhere near the level that we've gotten to now. Okay. Because coaching gave me confidence. It showed me that like, real estate has no ceiling, but it has no floor either, right? And what I love so much.
What does that mean?
Well, like you can succeed very high, but you can also go the other direction in debt very fast, right? So I realized like no one gets to tell me. I started when I was 22 years old in real estate. I was so young. And even looking back now, I'm like, how did those people use me? When I first started? Yeah. Like I just looked, how did they think to themselves like, that's the guy?
Yeah, you just look like fresh out of high school.
Yeah, and I recognize I still look young, but even then it was like way worse, right? So suit and tie every day, trying to be this person I'm not. And then with the coaching aspect, you get in rooms with people you really want to be in. They teach you so much. And then off of all of that as well, it built my confidence to know like I can do this. And no one gets to tell me that I can't, even at 22, be the person that goes into these people's home and show them that I have the experience level to get this done for them. Yeah. Because I don't think experience is just years in the business of what you do. It's how productive were you in those years. Lots of people have been in real estate 30 years that I've sold way more homes than. So it's not just years in business, but production level during your time in the business. And then on top of all that, in the real estate industry, when you meet other top producers, what you realize is they don't all work in your market. Right. They're spread out. So when they have clients that come to your market, they can refer them to me. So I'm now building a lead source with other people that do a ton of business. And I can send it to them and they can send it to me. So I'm building more opportunities for leads from this community than I would have never met these people otherwise.
That is so interesting. So you're not only in the room and people are giving you all of the information and how to do it and the accountability, and you're also meeting other people like you from other regions. You're not even competitors.
No.
So you guys can refer business back and forth. This brings us all the way back to lesson number 1 about visibility.
Yep.
This brings us all the way back to like the different ways to be able to get business. Mm-hmm. So now you're getting all these referral sources, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in the future. But that's amazing. For me, when I started by month 6, when I started my agency, by month 6, I was pretty much on the road to bankruptcy. Yeah. Because I just didn't know what I was doing. I was 23, you were 22, and I hired a business coach, and that helped. But the other thing I did was I joined a mastermind group. And I was telling you this story a little earlier because like I have the privilege of being able to be here with you today and be on this channel and wear this hoodie because Evan was running the mastermind group that I joined when I was just starting out, when I was 23 years old. And now 15 years later, we've done like really cool things together. But it all started with like me realizing that I don't know what I'm doing. Hard work isn't enough because I actually thought like I'm going to outwork everyone.
Which lasts for a period of time, then you burn out.
Yeah. And then month after month of you like working really hard at kind of really nothing because you realize you're not going the right direction. The hardest thing was to be able to say like, I need help.
And isn't it cool to join a community of people that do the same thing that you do, or in the same industry in some capacity, and you can talk to them about your problems and your issues and what you're trying to do? Because your friends and family are awesome, but they're not going to understand or have the same level of conversation with you about your business as the other people that are in the same boat. And on top of that, like, I've built lifelong friends. Like, some of my best friends now are people that I've met through these coaching organizations, through these mastermind events, that I'll go travel, halfway across the country to go see them and hang out.
Yeah.
Because I just love talking to them.
Yeah.
Because we're on the same wavelength on everything, and we've got the same business, completely different market, and we're just like, well, what's working for you right now? What's not working for you? Have you tried this? Have you tried that? And like, that is so much fun for me, having those conversations.
I'm always reminded of this because I'm an introvert and I don't really go out very often. And there have been times in my business where for like 2 or 3 years, it's just like working, not getting out there really. And then over the last year, I've been to tons of events, like just lots of events, lots of meeting new people and new networks. And I'm always like, oh, right, it's worth the investment of time. It's worth the investment of money. I'm learning new things. I'm introduced to new people. I'm seeing new business models. This is like the most amazing thing. And then I kind of kick myself for forgetting.
Yeah.
So I'm just thinking back to you, 2 years into this, $600 to attend an event, $10,000 to be able to get coaching. I'm thinking about myself 6 months into it. I remember turning to my mom when I got this proposal from a business coach, and I was like, I can't afford this, but I can't afford not to do this, right? Like, and it's a very unsettling place to be. It's like really scary to know that like I have an answer that I can't afford to do, but not doing it is also not an option. So I kind of just have to do it. And
it almost like, because it's expensive, you take it so seriously that you treat your business more seriously and more like a business owner.
Ah, that's interesting.
If it was
You're
free,
raising the stakes.
If coaching was just totally free,
Yeah.
you'd be like, oh, I don't have to do that.
And by the way, there's tons of free coaching.
Well, of
too.
course there is, but
do we access it?
I haven't found it yet because I pay for coaching. Right. It's like, I know it's there. It's always going to be there. I'll go when I'm ready, and you never go. But if it's paid, you show up, you paid for your time, and you take it really seriously. And I really believe that real estate coaching for me saved me more than 5 years of trial and error throughout that growth period of my career when I was just getting started, where I was just like, okay, this is what I need to do. And I had enough proof. I saw enough other people, on stage at the events or in the interviews or whatnot, that are following the same system and getting the results. If they can do it, I can do it. And I can promise you, anyone watching this, if I can do it, you can do it. Like, I'm the C student in high school that just found something I was really passionate about and took it really seriously. And like, to be honest, borderline obsessed with like making this work, because failure just wasn't going to happen. Like this was what this isn't my weekend job. This is my career. This is what I'm going to build long term. And coaching makes you take it way more seriously.
Okay, so of course there are people who maybe a little shady, let's say.
Yeah.
It's really hard to tell when people give you testimonials or proof points, or there's someone on stage. It's hard to tell how much of this is kind of an act.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe they have their visibility super high, but their ability's not there. What are you looking for in a program, a coach? What are you looking for?
The main thing for me would be understanding my market. Okay, so there's lots of coaching programs that are worldwide, or North America wide, or just America, or just Canadian, or whatever. I want someone that knows my market, that has traded in my market at some point and have done the day-to-day things that they're telling me to do. They don't have to have done it forever, but I need them to have at least like a baseline of like, I actually did this. This is why I'm telling you to do this, right? Not just theory. I want practical coaching. Then if I break it down even further, what I always ask any service provider that reaches out to me about their service, I go, okay, I'm interested. If you can even send me the names, could you give me 3 people you recently worked with? I just like to call them and talk and chat with them. And I've had great experiences with ones that are like, yeah, here are the 3 people, call them. And they're like, yeah, this is a great service, and I use them. But then the ones that are hesitant, you're like, okay, well, right away, you've already shown your cards to me. I'm probably not going to work with you.
Right.
I love this topic because coaching saved you 5 years. It saved my business. I really strongly suspect with the right coach, it will help anyone be able to get ahead. We've been sitting here at the kitchen table where business happens for a while now. I want to stretch my legs. We can grab some caffeine, but Topic number 5, what's about to come up, you said is your favorite number one. When I said out of these 10 lessons, which is the one that's your number one, it's this one, right? Tease us. What's coming up?
It's absolutely this one. If there's only one thing I could talk about, it would be this. And it's really having the bird's eye perspective on your business. And when you're growing out your business, how to move the puzzle pieces and the chessboard. And I've got some fun analogies for you, but bird's eye view perspective by far I think is the number one thing because it's mindset and it's going to control everything else.
Okay, let's get going. Okay, so we weren't lying when we said we were stopping for a coffee break. Literally, it's that time.
It's that time.
We need coffee. But we're actually talking about your most exciting, hold on, let's take a sip. We're actually talking about your most exciting of your 10 lessons.
Yeah.
Right? When we were talking earlier, it's like number 5 is the one, and that's bird's eye view. What does that mean?
It's mindset for me. So, the best example is when I walk out to the dock out there, and like my calm now is like how I deem success. My business, real estate in general, is very reactionary. And there are stressful situations that come out, just like how many fires are you putting out every single day?
Right.
And so to be able to make those decisions in a calm manner, they're going to happen. There's a great saying actually from Jamaica that I learned growing up, which is no problems, only situations. Okay? And it's a mindset shift where it's like, okay, things happen. We can freak out, but if you're just playing in them, you're going to be stressed out at all times. So the bird's eye view perspective, the first time it really stuck out to me is I would watch at the dock of my cottage, there's these birds that would kind of hover, right above the lake. And then they would dive down and they would grab these little fish. I remember thinking like, that's no fair for the fish. They never had an opportunity. I think most people go through life, specifically real estate agents, just trying to survive. They're the fish kind of going around, but then there's people that wait, take a step back, think about every decision from the bird's eye view and kind of like moving the chess pieces. So for me, mindset wise, it's like everything that we do in our business, I think has to be bird's eye view, especially these big decisions. Because if you just make them on the go, you're just in the now, you're in the business. Take a step back and work on the business, and you do that from the bird's eye view.
I love that analogy because one, I mean, we're here at the lake, so I can just totally picture it. You're right. Like when you're swimming, what do they say? Like the fish doesn't know that it's underwater.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Right? So here we are. We're busy running around all day, every day. We don't know that we're underwater. But you're right. The predator, the one who's like really back, who's like seeing it all in, who can see the fish swimming along and then like just like dive and grab it.
Is that not such an unfair advantage?
Yeah.
It's like the fish never had a chance. The bird was totally had the advantage there. What if you could give yourself an unfair advantage in your business?
Okay, so what does that actually look like?
I think in real estate, we work in the business a lot of it, which is servicing clients, going out there, showing properties, meeting with sellers, but we don't work on the business as much as we should. Okay. So working on the business is figuring out your systems. Where are your leads going to come from? What are your systems and workflows going to look like? And then all those big decisions that you make on a day-to-day basis, because they're going to come at you very fast, if you just make them in the moment without thinking, because you're so busy with all these other things, they might not be the right decision. But for me in real estate, it's like, okay, every time a big decision happens, I actually will take a moment, step back, like not physically step back, but in my mind,
but maybe like go for a walk.
Yeah,
or something?
maybe, clear your mind. And really go like, okay, I'm in the moment right now, it's stressful. Remove yourself from that moment and then think big picture. Is this pushing me towards my goal? Like I think in real estate, you have a few buckets that you try to fill. It's like lifestyle, maybe income, maybe family. So if the decision you're making isn't filling one of those buckets that's getting you to your end goal, why would you do it?
Yeah.
And I think that's really the big thing for me is just overall mindset where what I'm trying to do is accomplishing me to a specific kind of like finale, whatever that is in your business or goal at the end of the year. If it's not going to fall into one of those buckets, you don't realize that when you're the fish swimming around trying to survive. But when you're the bird and you have that unfair advantage, kind of taking a step back and looking at everything, I think it just, the mindset shift for me, when I started thinking like that, really helped me grow the business out because I wasn't just stuck in the now, I was thinking about the future.
We talked about the 3 business models earlier. If you're the solo, or you're the person joining a team, or maybe you're trying to build your own team, do you slow down on marketing and visibility, slow down on sales? Like this time has to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
It's not going to come from sleep. It's not going to come from just like throwing more time at it. So what are you sacrificing? What were you sacrificing to free up time to be able to get that bird's eye view?
Yeah, so for me, it was switching to when I started my business, I would help a lot of people lease properties.
Yeah.
But 2.5 years in, I decided I don't do leases anymore. I'm just focusing on buyers and sellers. Then it got to the point that I was so busy with buyers and sellers, I couldn't equally do both and give them the type of service I was looking for. So I had to hire people onto my team to service the buyers. So I actually would give away massive opportunities with buyers at commission splits where I was not keeping all of it anymore to focus on the other avenues of my business. So it's like, what's the thing that you have to give up? And now sometimes it makes sense perfectly financially to give up certain things. Sometimes you like really love it, but it makes no sense to do it.
Right.
Right. And that's where I think.
Would you hold on to those things just because it feeds your soul?
I think some people should.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not saying like be a total robot here and everything's a system. But yeah, do the things you enjoy, but know your, and we talked about the, what are you worth per hour? Try to figure that all out, but you're gonna have to sacrifice something. So for me, for making content, I could not put out as many videos, as much content as I do right now if I was actively showing buyers all day long. But now I have a team of people that are so good at that task that it's okay because it's taken care of and I'm still there for them. I'm just not physically the one opening the door anymore.
Our next lesson 6, we're going to actually break down team structure.
Yeah.
So coming up, we actually get into the team structure. We'll be able to break it down. We'll get into all that stuff. But there's a second part to what we're talking about right now, right? The bird's eye view is being able to lift yourself out of the day-to-day, even for a moment, to be able to make sure that you're working on the business and not in the business, like E-Myth 101, right? It goes back even to that great book that I read even before I started my company. The other part of this, though, was a breakthrough you had when it came to what to focus on and even how to employ your time, right?
Yeah, so the biggest thing that one of my mentors at the very beginning taught me is like, you can be in charge of your business, but you can't be in control of everything.
Right.
So Richard Robbins was the guy that taught me that. Really say, like, big shout out to him. Totally changed my mindset on it. Where it's like, I can be in charge of the entire business, but I don't have to be in control of every minor aspect.
But it's not only you don't have to be, you can't.
No, you can't, not if you're looking for growth.
Right.
At a level of production that's reasonable over a period of time. Most of the most successful people that I know do very few things now. They just focus on the big activities that they know get them the results. Then everything else is they've hired someone in that can do it better than them or makes more sense on a volume per hour basis and things like that.
Yeah.
You can't do everything. You can't be everything. If you return something to a store that you bought it from, a different person's helping you return it versus the person that sold it to you.
Right.
If I have a problem with a department store, I don't get to talk to the CEO. So you have to think about your own business in that same way, where you don't have to be everything to everybody. And also in those times of growth, it's okay to have a few stumbling blocks along the way. If it's totally perfect,
it's okay because it's gonna happen.
Well, I'd be more concerned if it's like everything works perfect. I'm like, okay, something bad's about to happen. Right? Like if everything's good for too long, just wait because it will change. But if you have those moments along the way where it's not perfect, and I think a lot of real estate agents hate giving up tasks because the mindset is, well, that person's not as good as I am at that. And maybe not at the beginning, but they could become, if they singly focus on that task, they can become way better than you at that.
This reminds me of a story, and I think it was Russell Brunson who spoke about the idea that when you're putting together a team and you're growing your team, it speaks perfectly to the idea of being in charge but not control. The idea is that you, as the real estate agent, as the realtor, you are probably the best at working with clients. You probably are the best at your marketing or your systems or your writing deals or dropping the lockbox off.
Sure.
But if you can find someone who can do that at that like number 10 level, like the 10 out of 10, because even though you think you're really good at it, they might be only really good at that one thing.
Yeah, and better at you at that one thing.
Right.
And I found realtors are really scared of growth in the fact that when they build out a team or stop servicing the buyers, they're like, well, if I'm not the one doing it, people won't work with us anymore.
But it makes sense, right? Like you're the face on the signs.
Yeah.
Your name is on the building, so to speak.
Yeah.
You're the one who has all the visibility.
Yeah.
Because we focus on visibility as opposed to ability. And so if it's not you, then won't people feel like a bait and switch, I suppose?
So that's a good question. I think a lot of people feel that way. The way that I've done it now is I will still always have the initial consultation call with buyers, and I will educate them. And when it gets near the end of the call, I'll tell you, it's like, this is the way that we have built out our business. I have 3 agents, and we connect you with them based on personality. It's not some like you're assigned to this person to work with. It's who do I think is going to fit best for your situation. Their job is to show you properties, and they are available to show you properties. Because I also work with sellers, I can't physically do both. But if my value to you is just to open the door, I don't think you should be hiring me anyways.
Right.
Because when it comes time to make the offer, I can walk you through strategy. The difference for me and my business is I realized I couldn't physically be everywhere, but I can take a phone call from anywhere. I can do a Zoom call from anywhere, but I can't show every single property anymore. And I found that we're not losing almost any clients, because once you break it down and explain to them like, hey, I'm here, I'm a part of this process, I'm just not the one opening the door for you anymore, they're totally okay with it. And by the way, sometimes halfway through, like, we're so happy we get to work with Morgan on your team. Like, we like her better than you anyways. So it's a good wake-up call.
Oh, that's both like a little inside cheer, like, yay, she's so good. And then at the same time, it's like, oh, they don't like me as much.
But I think you got to get over that. Like, you can't be everything to everybody. And if you win everybody over, again, I don't think you're trying to do enough business if you're not running into stumbling blocks along the way. And you can't, like, there's just too many variables. In this business, there are so many variables, especially like if we're helping a buyer make an offer on a property, it's like, let's focus on what we can focus on. We control this. There are 18 other things happening at the same time. We don't know what the seller's thinking, what the other offers are. There's so many other things. Let's just tunnel vision on what we're trying to do. Because there's just so many distractions, and it happens in the process of actually, doing this for a living and helping people. But then in your own business, there's lots of shiny objects everywhere, and it's very easy to fall off track.
Okay, so circling back to the idea of being in charge but not in control, which is something that I love. I mean, I'm a control freak.
Yeah.
But I don't think I am. But truthfully, I am, because I trust myself more than I trust other people. Mm-hmm. And there's no other way to say it, which is like, I know what I'm capable of. I know what I can do. I know how much effort or time I'm putting into it. But you're right, you can't scale a business that way. You can't grow a business that way. So what were the first few things that you really had to come to terms with as you started to shift this mindset from being in control to being in charge?
Yeah, so the first things seem very minor, but it's all these things that you don't think you're spending a lot of time on, but then they add up, right? So for me, it's even like writing the contracts or sending over the paperwork to the client. I used to do that, and that would take me 20, 30 minutes here, 20, 30 minutes here, but then that would build up over time. And now when I wake up, the thought process is, today, how do I meet with a buyer looking to buy or sell real estate in the next 120 days, a seller looking to do the same, or our team show a property? Because those are really the 3 money-making activities. Everything else kind of leads to that.
Why were you holding on? Like, again, I'm not a realtor, so to me, the idea of writing a contract is just throw some triangles here,
sure,
typey some stuff in. It seems pretty templated, though. No?
It is absolutely templated, but still is taking you away from, I think there's other things you could be doing with that time. So like,
right, but I'm wondering why you felt the need to still control that.
Oh, that's a good, well, because you think you can do it better than anybody else. That's the truth.
Back to that.
Like, no one can write it the way I can write it. You realize pretty quickly that's not the case at all. And then, like, if a mistake were to happen, if it was you writing it, you own that mistake.
Right.
If a mistake happens that someone else writes it, your client doesn't care about that. You're still the one that presented it to them.
Right.
So then it comes back to you. And that's where, like, along the way, there's going to be these minor mistakes that happen. And then sometimes when those mistakes happen, you go, oh no, never mind, I'm going back to doing it all myself. And then you're kind of going backwards, even though you've got to be okay with these mistakes along the way, because it's going to help you build out to the future.
So it seems to me that what we're talking about a lot, at least with the 5 lessons that we've covered so far, is this kind of push-pull dynamic of freeing up time to focus on the most important things and releasing control around a lot of how things happen, and just being kind of comfortable knowing that I'm going to make mistakes, things are going to mess up, but hopefully in the future, all of this time and messiness will lead to, like, is that like it?
Yeah, like, it sounds kind of wooey, but I really do believe that, like, things work out the way that they should. I really do believe that you find what you're looking for, right? So if you set a crazy big goal, I think you can get that crazy big goal. If you set a goal just to get by, I think you'll just get by. When you really break it down and look at like, okay, here's the aspects I can control. You do everything within your power to do such a great job at those aspects, things typically work out the way that they should. Now, does it happen the first time always? No. Does it take a few times or maybe a few stumbling blocks along the road? Yeah, absolutely. But if you're just focusing on one thing and then it doesn't happen and you're blaming all these other things you can't control, I just don't see that pushing your business forward. That's kind of just pushing you backwards.
I'm asking a question here. I'm not making a statement. But I almost want to say that this requires patience. Maybe is that the thing that it requires of you, or is it understanding, or is it a lack of judgment, or is it when things go wrong? Like, it just takes extra time, right? You need to stop being so busy. You need to give these things up. So like, what is the thing that is required of us to be able to make this happen and get comfortable with it?
It's the trust in yourself that what you're doing is moving you forward, although at the time it feels really nerve-wracking. Like, you know, for me, giving away working with buyers, which at the time was a big portion, was terrifying for about 3 to 4 months. And then, but with that time I now had back, all I did every morning as a job, I said, how am I going to find a seller today? And I did way more listings than I ever have before, because that is what I singularly focused on.
Wow.
But leading up to it, you know, a month and a half in, I'm like, should I have done this or not?
Did it look like it was going the wrong way?
Yeah. It probably took a lot longer than I'm even saying. Like, if you really break it down, it's probably taken 6 months to actually get to the point that I look back and go like, okay, that was a good decision. But as you're going through it, especially in the early stages, there's a lot of times where you're second guessing yourself.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here because my mind goes negative.
Sure.
You're ruining your name, you're ruining your brand, you're giving poor customer experience, you're maybe not getting your clients the deals they need, right? Like, it's a very scary cost there, right?
It's very scary. I'd say, like, during that time frame, you have to do more hand-holding and mentorship and education with the people that you are bringing in. Like, if you think you're going to bring someone into your business and they're just going to solve a problem for you, like, there's just not how this works. You have to build out the system, train them what they're going to do, and realize for them too, it's going to take them the time to get up to speed that you would consider like the same level of service. Well, some people will never consider anything as good as what they do, and that's fine. But I think that's just like growing pains. Like, I think if you don't do that, you're going to get stuck at a certain point. And a lot of real estate agents plateau, where they do a good amount of business and then they do it again and again and again. And regardless of market going up or down, they're kind of just doing the same thing. I think it's because they're stuck in the way that it's always been.
Right.
And they don't want to change it because they don't want to lose what they have.
Yeah.
Without realizing they could double what they have if they just put the right people in the right positions.
Such a great lesson. You know, I see it with startups, I see it with entrepreneurs, and you just confirmed it again. We want what's next without risking or sacrificing what we have. And yet it's almost always like, to get that next thing, you have to be willing. You won't lose it maybe, but you have to be willing to put it on the line.
Yeah, it's terrifying. Especially when this is your sole income source and you run a business that is not guaranteed income, that's based on what you actually put into it, right?
Yeah.
And when you start entrusting other people with different avenues of bringing in opportunities, servicing people, you know, bringing money into the actual business, and it's not just you, yeah, that's really terrifying right off the bat. But then you start seeing it clicking, and then you look back and you're like, wow, how did I not do that earlier?
Yeah.
How did I not build this out earlier? Why was I trying to do all these things? I'm not a website developer. I'm not a blog writer. Why am I doing all these things? Because I have the time maybe, but it's certainly not the best use of my time.
I can totally see why number 5 is like your favorite lesson, like the idea of taking a bird's eye view on the business and being able to like swoop in and be like really targeted and attack when you need to. Or even the idea of being in charge as opposed to control. If you don't figure those two things out, you're never going to scale a team. You're never going to scale a business. Now, we're going to move into lesson number 6, which is all about team structure. But before we do, I just also want to share a few of your other favorites that we're going to get into later. We're going to talk lesson number 9, mastering your craft. We're going to talk about presentations. all the ways that you need to structure presentations, all the ways you've been able to nail getting that client to sign with you. And then number 10, we're going to talk about lead funnels, the 3 main sources of leads in a real estate business, which really is the lifeblood of any business.
100%.
But let's jump onto team structure, because for anyone who's going from 100,000 or 200,000 revenue, or maybe $250,000 to $1 million, or like you over the last 3 years, $1 million, $1.4 million, $2.4 million, and then who knows what the future has. Team is everything, as you've described.
Absolutely.
So what is your current structure, and help me understand the order that I have to figure out if I want to scale a real estate business.
Okay. So I think first what I'd say is that there's no perfect way to structure a real estate business, right? Like there's many different ways. This is the way that has worked well for me, that's got me to this point.
Great. Caveat aside, the reason we're interviewing you is because you've done it.
Okay.
So give us the magic.
All right. So I'd say it falls into 4 different categories, right? So you look at the category that produces opportunity and creates opportunity to meet more sellers. So that's kind of me. That's what I do. All I do now is I make sure my team's okay. I'm there for them. I do our team meetings. I'm creating content and doing listing presentations. So basically all day long, I'm focusing on my day is how many appointments did I book with sellers. That is what success is for me.
So you're wearing multiple hats still.
Yeah.
But right now, one hat is team leader.
Yeah.
The other hat is content, because that's visibility, which is, I guess, what, lead generation?
Absolutely.
And then the third was booking
seller appointments.
Booking seller appointments. Okay.
Yeah. So the real estate business, the first thing you're ever taught is listings give you leverage. They used to call it like listing to last. The agents that have the listings do the most amount of business because they have more leverage, right? So if you have a listing, you have many different opportunities. You could find the buyer for it. You could sell the property. You could sell the next home on the street. You could find the next buyer on the street, or you can get a referral from your client who's already a seller, or the seller becomes a buyer. There's really like so many opportunities. If you're working with buyers, you can sell them a property. Maybe you get a referral from them at the end of it, but there's 2 opportunities and there's more time involved. So I recognize I'm good. I do think you have to be more skilled to work with sellers than buyers, because there's more on the line and you have to walk through everything, where buyers just like, hey, can I see this house? Right? So I'm spending most of my time there right now. I would like to get to the point that I'm facilitating it, but I'm not actually doing the listing presentations anymore in the future. That's like the ultimate goal. So that's kind of like segment number 1 for what I'm doing right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's what you're doing, but how is the team structured around you to support you in doing that?
Okay, so the next kind of area is our buying specialists.
Okay.
So we have 3 agents on our team. They can do listings as well, but they're very heavy on servicing buyers. And the way that they would track their week is how many appointments did we set with buyers this week? How many showings do we have with people that are, and we categorize them into, you have bench players and you have starting players. Okay, so a starting player is a buyer that's ready to go, is pre-approved for their mortgage, knows the area they want, and can move quickly. Okay? If you're a bench player, they could be an awesome human being, but they're just not ready to move yet, or they're not pre-approved, or they're not ready to move quickly. They're still a great client, but they're not a starting player yet. So we focus our week on how many starting players do we have? Can we preemptively book appointments with them this week? So, if I'm going to show you properties on Thursday, even if there's nothing available right now, and today's Tuesday, let's say, I would reach out and say, hey, would you like to book 2 p.m. on Thursday to see properties? If nothing's available, we'll book the next appointment. So
is that a standard practice? Because when I purchased, we always waited to find the listing to try and scramble to set up the appointment, and then by the time we'd be like, oh, you can't see it for 2 days, and then the property sold or something.
It's certainly not a standard practice. When our market got very competitive, we had no other choice but to do this.
Okay.
And like we understand our clients have jobs and lives. They can't just at any point drop everything, right?
Yeah.
So we'd preemptively book them in for time slots where if there's something available, great, let's go see it. Let's try to beat the 5 p.m. rush. If there's nothing, that's okay. Let's pre-book the next one.
Okay.
So that's kind of the mindset to make sure, like we're just being more proactive with it instead of waiting and trying to react to everything happening at the moment. Those agents, the 3 of them on my team that help buyers they're just people. They're people.
They're people.
Yeah. They're just so great with people, building relationships. They come back and they tell me like their whole life story, and they're so good at really kind of digging deep. And it's not just I'm going to help you buy this and this is a transaction. It's like, you're becoming a friend of mine.
Okay.
And they're so good in. I'm not as emotionally intelligent, is the truth, as some of my team members. They're better client facing than I am in certain aspects of it, especially the emotional stuff, because buying a house, like all the things you think, like buying a house is on the list of most exciting things you're ever going to do in life. It's also on the list of like, holy crap, I'm buying a house.
Yeah. It's
terrifying. And like, this is a big purchase. I'm going to have a mortgage. There's all these things that run through your mind, right? So the buying agent, their job is to educate our buyers that they can move quickly when a decision happens because they have to, because our market's been so competitive for so long.
And what I find really exciting about the idea of scaling to your level is when you bring on some of these team members who are focused solely on the buying clients. Not only, as you said, are they maybe more people than you are, they have the ability to drop everything when something comes up, because they're focused 100% of their time on this type of client.
Yep.
So before, you were talking about how you had to do everything and you're trying to wear many hats. If someone calls you up and is like, I need to move right now on seeing this property, you may not be able to handle it, but with your team structure, you can put someone on it right away.
And the perfect thing too is with them too, like I recognize the three of them, they have lives as well, right? So if one of them can't service someone, it's okay, we have two others. Like there's always, the way we built it is to make sure there's always one of us available. And by the way, if I have to jump in, I will. I'm not gonna be like, no, I'm not doing that. Like if I have to jump in and service them, I will if it gets to that point. But ideally they're better at it because they do it every single day. And it's just when you have a clear vision of like, this is what you do, you find better results than trying to go down a bunch of different paths, like kind of halfway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is so interesting. We're going to get into the rest of the team in a second, but what I've noticed in the conversations we've had so far is you just think in terms of sales and marketing.
I do, yeah.
Because even when we were looking at the 10 lessons, very sales and marketing heavy, and we've worked in some operational things. We're talking about team now. But even when I asked you about team structure, earlier you said, hey, the first thing I gave away was like administrative work. Yeah. But when I ask you about team structure, you don't say administrative work. You start like, okay, big picture, how am I going to get more visibility? How am I going to get more business?
Yeah.
And then I have this great team of 3 people who help me get more business. I'm about to ask you your next section down.
Yeah.
Is it still sales and marketing?
There's one little piece. So in our market, you can do leases as well. So I have, when an agent first joins my team, if they're brand new to the business, for the first year, you're doing leases.
Right.
You're learning all the buildings, you're building out your database. Now, that's kind of section 3. And then they grow into doing first-time home buyers, then really becoming one of the main buyers agents as well. That's number 3. Number 4 is administration. So the current structure on our team is we have one full-time admin who works 9 to 5 hours. She also does have her real estate license, which I like that because a licensed assistant can still do tasks for you and have conversations that are more directed with clients that if they're not licensed, they're not allowed to have those conversations. So that's a big thing for me. And if I look at, we do these things called VIP boxes. So if we bring on a new client, let's say I'm meeting with you on Thursday, what I'll do is I'll have this box couriered to your house the day before. And it's a handwritten note, hey Mark, looking forward to meeting you and your wife on Thursday. And you'll have all these fun like little snacks in there and a booklet. So we're trying to wow them before we actually ever have that meeting in person. So when that happens, like, hey, I know that's gonna happen, I'll speak to my assistant and say, this is happening. But all that after that, I don't do. And even if we talk back to earlier in the fact, like the system that we run to stay top of mind with people, I've created that system. I no longer run it.
That's where you were talking about January.
The connectivity plan.
Connectivity, February, you do this, March, you do that. Okay, great.
I no longer run it. It's being run for me. Our client events are planned by our administrative team. All the paperwork is written. All the deals are submitted. Behind the scenes, all this stuff is happening.
Okay.
That I'm no longer involved in like I used to be. And I think that's a huge aspect. And I think the admin side, I'd even like to grow it a bit bigger because I think a lot of people just hire salespeople. But if you lock down the systems and the processes, and like when we get introduced to a new buyer or a new seller, there's a workflow that happens. It's like new buyer, step 1, step 2, step 3, and we have a whole back-end workflow with our CRM system that the administrator will run this, and it kind of just takes on a life of its own. You either have to have people or systems. You have to have really good people with really good systems. I don't think everything can be fully automated, but it's one of those two things. And I feel like I've got great people and I'm doing my best to build out systems that are going to help us.
Okay, so those are 4 categories. There's you as the visionary and the leader. There's a team of buying agents. There's listing agents who are working their way up through the system. And then there's administrative support. Is there anyone else kind of needed on the team?
Well, there are people I'd like to bring in. The way it's structured currently is what we talked about.
Okay.
Because we have so much online traffic coming in now too, I think I need an inside salesperson like an ISA that would actually go through all that and kind of scrub out those leads, because the time involved in that is so heavy that I can't do it anymore.
So your visibility is working too well.
It's working well, yeah. It's working well, but then like it's hard to cut through all of it, and you realize that most of the people online as well, like they might not just be ready right now.
Right.
But in a while they will be. So then they go into the CRM and they're getting the drip campaigns, but it's not the boring things that every other realtor's sending them. It's like an actual video for me being like, hey, welcome to our email list. This is what you can expect. Like it's a real like one-to-one.
Okay.
And then they're going on the more automated stuff, which is things that I think are actually going to be valuable to them.
Okay, so I'm curious the order, because we have 4, but as we talked about, you think in sales and marketing down.
Yeah.
I'm curious about the order as you scale your business, what we should be hiring, but also compensation. So if you're a salesperson, I mean, I'm assuming, but it's safe to assume that you're probably commission-based.
Yes, I am.
Not you, I
my
mean
team.
the people on your team.
They are, yes.
So I'm talking about the sales team. Your second group, the buyer agents, they're commission-based.
Yes.
Okay, and then your leasing specialist is commission-based as well.
Correct.
So there's not actually that much risk in building out a sales team. On your administrative and support side, are they performance-based? Are they commission-based? Are they salaried?
They're salaried with bonuses built in.
Okay. So really, as we look to grow sales and grow our sales team, it could actually be fairly low risk from a financial point of view to grow up a sales team.
From a financial point of view, yes, but from a time point of view, no. So I would actually caution people from just growing a sales team just to bring people in. Like it's got to be the right people in the right seat at that moment and really built into the team culture. Because if someone comes in and they think they know the way how they're going to do it and they go off path, that one person can kind of just change things up slightly for everybody. So even though there's not a lot of risk up front, but also if I'm giving someone an opportunity and they're not very good at their job, I'm going to lose a bunch of business that way as well, but maybe not realize it until a little bit further down the road. Yeah.
Okay, but you don't have to go out and make on the sales side at least, make a $60,000 or $80,000 or $100,000 commitment or anything.
No, here's the beautiful thing about real estate. The inventory already exists.
Right.
The homes are there, okay? I don't have to buy inventory. I really think that's why a lot of people get into real estate, because you don't have to, the startup cost is minimal compared to other business ventures, right? But yeah, if I look at the structure now, it's like I think you have to have the right people and then the administrative part, even though I'm not going to pretend like I'm the specialist in the admins stuff, because I really do focus on marketing because I love it so much. It's so important. It's like it has to be there. If that's not there, the rest isn't going to work.
Earlier you mentioned admin, so I know it's important. So what order would you recommend I scale my real estate business?
Yeah, so the first thing, hire a real estate coach.
Coach, right.
Coach first. Coach first. Coach first, then administrator, then another salesperson. That would be like the first aspect, and then you can decide on the sales team. And then I'm getting to the point now too where I'm thinking I'm going to have to bring someone in that kind of manages the sales team,
right?
So that I'm no longer managing the sales team, so I can focus even higher level on everything else, and then get to the point where I'm not actually servicing, I'm just owning the business.
Right, but you're at 2.5 million, looking for 5, looking to continue growing. So the road to the $1 million business though, okay, so hire the coach to turn you into the person you need to be, get the support, get all the stuff we spoke about earlier. Hire the administrative person to offload all the lower dollar tasks, but also to help you focus more on sales?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Sales is how you build out the business. Yeah.
Okay, and then bring on your first sales team member, because that will give you practice in building out a team and mentorship and coaching and systems and processes and theoretically, hopefully more sales.
Yeah, everything you're doing is just trying to give yourself a little bit more time back.
Right.
So coaching will help you be better at scheduling, right? Or be better at being accountable to somebody else, right? An assistant will help you with all the tasks that maybe you shouldn't be doing anymore. the agent that you're bringing on can help you with clients that you can no longer service because you're too busy, and you're going to drop the ball if you try to take on everything. So might as well give a little piece away so that someone else can service it for you. That's getting to the point, and then you have to decide when you get to that point, okay, well, what do you really enjoy about this business and what do you not enjoy about this business? And this will come up, but like, I love presenting. It could be one-on-one or a room of 1,000. I love presenting.
It's lesson number 9.
Yeah.
We're dedicating a whole lesson to it.
Yeah, like I really think that the skills in that are big. So for me with the team structure right now, I'll continue to grow. I think I want to add more administrator and then a few more salespeople. But it's also, and it goes back to profitability versus revenue, right? I know a lot of people that run massive teams, 15, 20 people teams, and I profit the same amount as them. So don't just grow for the sake of growing because you think it's the thing you're supposed to do. Really sit down, build out the business plan, and not just what you're going to do this year, but where are you going to be in 5 years? What about 10 years? Because you're not going to get to where you want to be unless you're so clear on what your goal is.
Obviously, there's going to be this working up of sales admin, or sales support, whatever it might be. Earlier, you mentioned, I think, a really great point. You have administrative teams with the real estate license, so that way they're legally able to do stuff that maybe an ordinary administrative person may not have to. Maybe that's going to cost you a little more. What else are you looking for if I'm setting out to hire that first administrator?
Yeah, okay, that's a great question. They have to be organized. So there's lots of different ways in figuring out like personality type, right? There's many different ways you can do it. The one that I use is a color-based system, and the color that we call organized is gold. So it's like when they show up, they have their book and they have the little things in every page and it's all marked down. They've taken amazing notes. Now, about half the population is that. Yeah. But you need to make sure that the person you're bringing in, because if you have someone that's great at sales, they shouldn't be doing administrative work. It makes no sense. Like, the people that are like squirrel, like they shouldn't be doing admin work.
You mean the people like you and me?
Me and you, yeah. Exactly. Like I recognize I would not be good at that. And well, I learned pretty quick because my brokerage didn't like the fact that my paperwork was always sloppy. Like I realized that going into it. And I also recognize that people that are in those admin roles, they want more security. They're in that role with a salary for a reason. They don't want to take on the commission sales aspect of it.
So is the unique thing the fact that you're trying to find the gold person with the notebook who's super detailed and organized and wants security, but they're willing to work in a unsecure, uncertain type of business? Because that's a bit unique, right? Like if I want security, I mean, go work at an accounting firm or something. Like go work in a secure place. Yeah. But you're looking for someone who is not like you. We always want to hire people like us.
No, you don't want that.
So you want someone not like you. Yeah. Who is super detailed focused and administrative, but also is willing to work in this kind of small, hectic environment. Is that what you're looking for?
That's a fair way to put it. And I think at the beginning, you could bring on someone 3 days a week. Okay. That's just trying to figure out if this is the right path for them as well. And then you can slowly, push it into full time. And I think there is that difference though. It's very hard to find someone for this role in my experience part-time. They're just not that, they're there for the money and it's a job and that's it. You want to find someone that you can build with, and finding really good people is very difficult. So if you find somebody, be great to work with, understand, because you don't want to have that turnover because it's hard to find new people. Now, if you've built out the systems and the structure, can you slot new people in the same positions and be okay? Yes. But still, finding turnover and trying to hire new people, every 6 months is not a business I'm interested in being in.
Right. And earlier we spoke about how visibility and time in the market makes more referrals come your way and more repeat. Just things get easier. Yeah. Does the visibility and the things that you're doing help make it easier for you to find talent?
Yeah, 100%. It's so funny you asked that. My whole team came to me through social media.
Really?
Yeah. Everybody. It was either a connection directly or my two recent members on my team that joined. They both knew who I was because of my videos. And they reached out because of that and said, I'm getting my license, I'd like to join your team. So it's almost like recruiting. And even our current assistant reached out to me, I had real ads everywhere. She reached out through an Instagram post. So
She DM'd you.
Basically, yeah. No, she actually called me directly. She just saw the thing and called me directly. She's like, he's a realtor, he'll pick up his phone. So it's just so funny, like finding talent is so much easier when you already have an audience. And what I realized too, which is interesting, is like my audience online, at least on like Instagram, it's probably 70% realtors. It's not just mostly realtors. So I realized the content I'm putting there is referral-based content. How can I get referrals?
Yeah.
Where on other platforms like YouTube, even LinkedIn is working really well recently. That is consumers.
Okay.
So just knowing who you're talking to on the platform that you're on based on the following that you have.
One of the most amazing parts of my job is I didn't realize how interested I was in real estate businesses. Like maybe I shouldn't be admitting that out loud, but this is like really fascinating. Because to your point earlier, I just thought like, oh, real estate.
Right.
But if you're operating it like an asset, like a business, like something you want to grow, and you want to turn it into a multi-million-dollar business that can give you that freedom, that can give you, sure, the wealth,
Sure.
but then also this, I don't know how to explain it. Like it's just the way you're operating is so savvy and advanced. But as you mentioned earlier, if you can do it, anyone can do it.
100%.
I love this. Thank you for the coffee. We're
You're
actually going to go. We're going to go sit down.
All right.
And we're going to get into a few more lessons. The next one, of course, is why to-do lists don't work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they don't.
So we're moving on to lesson number 7. I was begging Tom, like, how can we be on Lake Ontario and not spend some time outside? But funny enough, while the camera crew were like resetting to pull us out of the kitchen out here, you literally got a text.
Yeah.
What happened?
I got a text from another realtor that was referred my name by a friend in their office in a market outside mine. And they had a client moving to my market. And they literally said, I had a call with them. They're like, I've been following you on Instagram for a few years. I'd like to send you this opportunity. Can you help it? So it just sums up everything we've been talking about, the visibility aspect.
What I love most about this so
Yeah.
much is when I was checking in with you, and I was like, okay, I think we're gonna be ready to go in a few minutes. You're like, look at my phone. Look at my phone. I just got this text. Look, this literally just happened. It works. So, I mean, it just proves that like visibility and content, and we're gonna talk about lead generation.
Yeah.
We're gonna get into that stuff in the lessons ahead. But it literally works because while everything is getting set up, you still have business. While you're here with us for the day, you still have business trickling in.
Yeah, because the videos and the watch hours built up, like people can watch it whenever they're ready when I'm doing whatever else I need to do because it's already been done and it's out there. And it's hard to, sometimes I'll look at actually the breakdown of the watch hours on my YouTube videos. And it's like the first 2 days it was out on YouTube, it's been watched for 40 days worth of time. What other marketing platform do you have that will give you that avenue? If you figure it out, tell me. I'd like to know.
Okay, we're gonna get to that. We're gonna get that in the lessons ahead. But lesson number 7 is the idea that to-do lists don't work.
Yep.
I think I understand it, but what does this mean?
Okay, so to-do lists work, but not the way I think a lot of people are utilizing them.
Okay.
So I used to, while I was in bed getting ready for the next day, I would schedule an email for 7 a.m. the next morning with like a list of the things I wanted to accomplish the next day. And my goal in real estate was always like get those main things done by noon so that I can focus on appointments in the afternoon. And I would get to the office, I would print off this list, and it feels good checking things off, right?
Listen, man, I love to-do lists.
Okay.
Which is why I'm kind of curious about
Yeah.
this, because I have so many ideas and I'm overwhelmed most of the time with things to do. And when you have like anxiety in business or ADHD or whatever else it is, you not only want to be able to organize your thoughts, but it feels so good to like cross those things off, knock those things out. So please ruin this for me now.
So what ends up happening, right, is there's one thing on that list that you don't do.
Yep.
And then it goes the next day, and
Yeah.
then the next day,
Yeah.
and then you see it and you feel bad about it. So it's not that I don't think to-do lists work, I just don't think they're being done the right way. So if you're gonna write it down on a piece of paper, you have to know when it's actually gonna be complete, and it has to be in your calendar.
Right.
Now, I heard this on a podcast years ago, and it was like, oh, I'm doing this wrong. Because I would always stress out over that one thing I didn't do on my to-do list.
Yeah.
And it was always the big thing, and then next week, and I start feeling bad about it. Now it's like it's only going on my to-do list if it's also going in my calendar as an event where the time is being blocked for me to focus on this task, or at least have an end date in my calendar that this task needs to be complete.
Okay, so how does this then play into building a real estate business?
Yeah.
Because we've already been through all of these other lessons that talk about focus on marketing and focus on team building and focus on systems and all of these things. But how is it that you're then organizing your time and balancing this with your calendar, and what does this actually mean?
All right, so I think when you're building out a real estate business, you want to work on your business in the morning, and then you want to work in your business in the afternoon. So the on the business is following up with emails, booking appointments, calling that person back, and getting that to-do list done. And then when you get to the afternoon, you can book in your time slots. So, I'm meeting with a buyer at 2 p.m., I've got a seller appointment at 6 p.m., and then at 8 p.m., I'm doing a showing, right?
Okay.
But I think a lot of realtors will try to just pack their whole day with everything where they don't have time. So the structure aspect of it, like, I'm not a 5 a.m. person. I recognize that there's a lot of great things that can happen if you get up that early, but I'm not gonna pretend I'm that kind of guy. I really like my sleep. But I recognize how important routine is. I'm not even so sure if I love coffee or if I just love the fact that when I sit down at my computer in the morning, it has to be in my right hand, because I've created such a routine to it. I think that's the same thing with your schedule and with the to-do list. If we're taking it back to what we were talking about at the beginning, everything has to be organized and have its spot, and it's probably my personality type as well in terms of that's the way that I look at this. But I found just like being there and also looking around my office every single year, the people that are in there with their routine and they have structure are always the ones that sell the most amount of real estate. The people that pop in and out when they feel like it, and also you get this great vibe when you're around other people that are doing good things, and you really build off their energy. Or if you're just working at home alone every day, you're not getting that same aspect.
It seems like we're talking mainly about time management.
Yep.
And the best way to structure your time. I love what you mentioned earlier when you said that you would like proactively with clients pre-book, like Thursday afternoon, we're going to go ahead and do this viewing. And so I understand that structure. Morning on the business, afternoon in the business makes sense, because I imagine most things happen in the afternoons, evenings, and weekends.
Yeah, they do.
It's when your clients are free.
Yep.
Is there any risk to finding yourself working 60, 70, 80 hours a week because you are working every morning and you are working every evening and you are working every Saturday and every Sunday? Or is that like a good thing actually, because when you're starting out, that's what you need to do?
It's a good thing when you're starting out, but you can only keep that for so long until you're going to burn yourself out. So my favorite analogy for the real estate industry is run your business like you're a dentist. Okay.
Okay.
So let me play this out.
Most things people say, like my analogy is, I'm like, okay, I've heard this, I know where we're going. Trust me,
You
I
never
have no
heard
idea where you're going.
Okay, so the dentist. Now, who calls you to book your dentist appointment?
I guess an administrator.
Yeah, the front desk person, the administrator. And what they always will say, Tom, you're due for an appointment. Okay, we have 8 a.m. on Thursday morning or 3 p.m. on Tuesday afternoon. I'm like, neither of those work for me, but fine, I'll do the 8 a.m. on Thursday because that's the slot you said was available, right? And then when you go into the dentist, who's actually doing 80% of the work?
The dental hygienist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the dentist comes in at the end, they're the final 20%, and they wrap things up.
Okay.
And by the way, most dentists actually own their business. They can sell it at a profit
Yeah.
when they're ready to retire.
Can I admit to you though that I have no emotional connection to my dentist at all, and I only request my hygienist because I spend so much time with them. So
there you go. But here's the thing: the dentist doesn't care because they're still running their business. Whether you see the hygienist or them, they own the business.
right. And it's to your point earlier, which is like, I'm busy thinking like, oh man, I really like the hygienist. They own the business the same way that you were able to pull yourself out of buying agent,
Yep.
working with the buying clients and other things. So that makes a good point. But you're right. I spent all of my time with the hygienist. I spent all of the time with the administrative staff. They breeze in. They go like, how's it going? They don't know me from anyone. They look at the chart because they don't even know my name.
Yeah.
And then they breeze out and off, and, oh great, ripping off their rubber gloves. I'll see you in a few months or whatever.
Yeah. So it's almost like, how can I take that model, but keep the relationship side of it very strong with the client, still be client facing, where we book in times that are on my schedule, but they still work with the client, right? And that's very clear. Because if you just say, hey, okay, my whole schedule's free. When can I come over? They'll be like, well, the kids go to bed at 7. Why don't you come over at 8:30 p.m. on Thursday? And you're like, well, that's the worst time ever, but I'll do it because I just gave you that, right?
Yeah.
But if you're more in control of your time, and I'll tell you, giving people 2 options on time that they can meet with you, I found 90% they will choose one of them.
Okay.
Sometimes they'll be like,
Does this just come down to like, I learned this, I don't know, 20 years ago, the idea that you go, are mornings or evenings better for you? Mornings, 10 a.m. or Tuesday or Wednesday? Wednesday, 9 a.m. or 11 a.m. Is this just idea, just like give them 2 choices?
just give them 2 choices, and most of the time they'll pick one of those choices in terms of timing. If you just open yourself up and say, well, when are you available?
Yep.
They will just give you all the times that are probably not the best times to run your business as well.
Lesson number 7, to-do lists don't work. I don't know if I like this one, but I have to agree. I have to agree, and I only say that because actually behind the scenes, anytime I have something on my to-do list, I already time block it.
Right.
Because I know like, okay, so on my to-do list, I'll go ahead and write my list, and then I'll actually write like Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then in my calendar, I'll go the distance and do it. So this actually makes a lot of sense. I've spent way too many years making lists and then never getting around to them and never doing them, and I just got tired of it. So I think that's amazing advice. Let's move on to lesson number 8, focus on appointments.
Yeah.
Okay, appointments are everything, right?
Totally.
Everything.
Totally.
Okay, so how do we do this? What do we do? What mistakes did you make early on? How did you learn how to be such a rock star at this?
Yeah, so appointments, I think, are the biggest thing that if you're a real estate agent, you have to wake up every single morning figuring out, how am I going to book appointments? And really, like, all the roads lead to appointments. Everything we do in our business should get you to the point that you're sitting in front of a buyer or seller, because that's how we're going to run our business, right? And about a year ago, I visited a good colleague of mine, and I saw in his office, he had these signs everywhere, and it said, have you booked an appointment today? And I asked him, like, what's this all about? He's like, I just want my team members to know that when they come to the office, the point of being here is booking appointments. That's it. Like, those are basically the actual money-making activities that fuel our business, is meeting with a buyer, meeting with a seller, or showing a property to a buyer. So a buyer consultation, when they're just getting started, showing them a property, or meeting with a seller. Okay. Those 3 things actually lead to income.
Huh. I love the simplicity of that, because when you break down a business and you just say, okay, I'm only going to actually make money off of meeting with a buyer, meeting with a seller, or showing people properties, and you focus all of your time and effort on that with clarity, you're going to know whether you're doing what you have to do or not, right?
Well, yeah, and I mean, like, what you're trying to do when you look at your week and you look at your calendar, you should almost, like, on every day of the week, figure out, these are the days that I'd love to do appointments. Right. Now, it's never going to be perfect, right? But how can you try to slot in those appointments every week to build a business that you're really proud of, and you can still have a life on top of it, which is a big aspect of this, right?
I mean, I can't imagine you were always thinking this way.
No.
What were you doing before, and how did this shift happen?
The shift happened when I really started treating it like a business, and that came back to really when I got into the coaching aspect of everything. Okay. Is really focusing on, like, what is the action I have to take, which then creates a behavior, and then what's the result? So I know if the behavior's there, but the result doesn't always come right away, that's okay as long as we're doing the right behaviors. And then just recognizing that, like, all the things we do, so whether it's creating content, doing open houses, showing properties, all of that leads to booking appointments. Like, all the main things. So it's like, if you don't have one of the 3 key things, which is buyer consultation, seller consultation, or showing a property, what are you going to do to get one of those things? And is it responding to an email? Is it following up with a past lead you haven't heard from in a little while? Is it connecting with your referral partners? There's all these different things you can figure out, but then if you break it down and go backwards, I think 1 in 4 opportunities actually works out.
1 in 4 opportunities work out. So if I'm thinking about this like as a pyramid or a ladder, the foundation at the bottom are being able to meet with buyers, sellers, or show properties.
Yes.
Okay, so that's like the goal, because that's going to lead to sales and money and all that other stuff. The next level above that are opportunities, activities?
Yeah, it would be opportunities, and I think 1 out of 4 opportunities works out.
So what is an opportunity then?
An opportunity is someone that said to you, hey Tom, I'm thinking about getting into market. Can we have a chat next week?
Okay, so like this text.
It can be like the text, yeah.
Right, so I mentioned earlier when we were setting everything up, you got a text on your phone, you got a lead that came in, so that's an opportunity.
That's an opportunity because
Okay, and then when you call the person and when you meet with them, that's an appointment.
that's the appointment.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Now, not all opportunities work out, and that's okay.
Right.
But it's then working backwards, how many opportunities you need to hit the appointments that you need, which get you to the result that you're trying to hit.
Okay, so you said roughly 1 in 4, so 25% in your experience, 25% of opportunities can turn into an actual appointment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do appointments overwhelmingly turn into sales?
Most of the time, yes. The difference is that the sales don't always happen on your timeline as a business owner. They open on the timeline of the people that you're working with, right? So it's like there are people I had an appointment with a year ago that nothing has happened that then call me back and say, hey, we're ready now. So it's not like it always happens. So it's almost like to look at your conversion rate, you have to give yourself a 12-month leeway to figure out, well, when did it actually fall into place? Because it's not going to happen right away. And some people want to meet and just say, hey, we're thinking about doing this. What do I need to know right now? So they're not quite ready to get into it yet.
Yeah. Now, I know in the next lesson, we're going to break down the presentation, which is actually what you do in the appointment. But I want to spend a little bit more time on this because I think that it's really important. You've mentioned a few times like 1 in 4 close. I asked you, do things do appointments turn into sales? You said overwhelmingly. The only way to be able to know this is to be able to track everything. Yeah. So are you tracking? Are you tracking all of this activity? Are you tracking everything?
Yeah, we track every Tuesday. We have team meetings.
Yep.
And we track appointments.
Okay.
So how many appointments have you been on? What was the result? And if the result's not there yet, that's okay. But what was the behavior?
Okay.
What did you actually do, and is the result going to come into the future? So we very much track appointments. That's probably our number one metric that we track.
Really?
Yeah, because appointments are the thing that we need to do to meet with people face to face. If we don't have them, we're not going to sell any real estate.
Okay. Are appointments the same things as contacts, or can you have like multiple appointments with the same contact, if you know what I mean?
I would say it's an appointment with one person can turn into more appointments, but it's that one.
That first one, that's what matters.
That's the one that matters, that creates the ripple effect moving forward, yeah.
Okay, so when you walk into the office and you're amazed that your friend has this sign up that says, have you booked an appointment today? Is the goal to book an appointment every day?
Well, I would say the goal for me is to book 2 appointments per day. They don't have to be
so
on
you want
that day.
You want like 700 appointments a year.
Yeah. Now, by the way, I'm not the one going on all of them.
Right, because you built a team.
Right.
And you scaled it.
But you can start small and then build it out. And if that was your only metric and you just focus on appointments, you could build a really cool business. I really think that.
If I am smaller and I'm looking to start, maybe I'm solo, maybe I'm joining a team, maybe I'm building a team. Again, I keep bringing it back to hopefully the people who are watching and getting a ton of value out of everything that Tom is sharing. But if you're that person, what kind of appointment metric, like what should I be aiming for? Like what's not so high that I'm setting myself up for failure, but also not so low that it's a walk.
So let's say you want to sell 10 properties a year. Let's use a simple number, right? That's 12 months in a year, so not quite 1 property a month, right?
Yep.
So if you want to focus in on that, you got to figure out how many appointments you have to book to get that sale, right? Okay. And for us, it's probably like 3 to 1. 3 appointments to 1 sale. Okay. Now again, not perfect science, but that's what I've tracked with my team.
Okay, so I want 10 sales in a year.
Yep.
I have a 3 to 1 ratio, so I need 30 appointments.
Yeah.
You said that 25% close rate, so 1 in 4.
Yep.
So I need 120 opportunities in a year. So I need 10 opportunities a month.
Which when you really break it down, that seems totally reasonable.
Does it?
Yeah.
That's like a little over 2 a week.
But what else do you do in that week? Like if you just focused on finding the opportunities and the appointments.
See, I like how you're like totally reasonable. I'm like, really? But if you asked me to suddenly find 2 new opportunities, 2 new conversations every single week, all year long, I'd be like, I don't know how to do that.
Well, then, I guess then what you do is you focus on the tasks that help you get those booked.
Visibility over ability.
Putting out content, getting yourself out there,
Right.
following up with people you've talked to in the past. The person that wasn't quite ready last year, you should check in on them.
Okay.
Let your current clients know what's happening with the market. Have conversations that then get them to reach out to you to let you know when they're ready.
This makes me think of a time in my business when I didn't set forecasts. And I didn't set forecasts because every time people would suggest I do, I would say, how am I supposed to know what's going to happen? Right? Like I'm not in control of whether people have budget or don't have budget, whether they say no or they say yes, whether they're ready today or ready a year from now. Like you said, sometimes people are. I don't have any control over that.
Yeah.
So how am I supposed to forecast what's going to happen when it's all out of my control? Now I know that that's actually a bit of a reactionary mindset, maybe a bit of a fixed mindset. Maybe I'm not taking responsibility for what I could be focusing on, which is why I don't really do that anymore. Now we set quarterly goals and we set forecasting and everything else. But when you're early on, I have to imagine this all feels out of your control, as opposed to where what I'm hearing from you, which is you have total control over this.
Well,
so how did you potentially flip that switch, and what was that?
I think it's when I had enough years of experience to look back and review the data and go like, okay, well, I did this many appointments, I had this many results, I was weak in this area, I was very strong in this area, I need someone to help me in this area, and then focus in on like, hey, how to add that all up to actually get to where I want to be. But in your first year, everything's new.
Yeah.
Everything's new, you don't know where it's going to come from. Your second year, you're still finding your feet, and then you keep going. But now it's gotten to the point that I can actually look back and like our database of clients, we're getting an over 20% return on them, almost guaranteed every single year by running the same system. The market doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they move, because referrals are a big part of it as well. They don't have to move, but their friends are moving. Everyone knows 5 to 7 people that are moving every year because they talk about it. And when those conversations happen, why would they say, oh, well, you should call my friend Tom? Like that's all I'm really thinking of. So I know on certain aspects, there's always the business you can't control that just comes out of nowhere. And you can never track that perfectly. Like it's really a fool's game to try to think you can. But I know on our database system, if we follow the same system, I can get almost a guaranteed result.
Wow. So what do you say then to the viewer, or even to myself, like the old version of me, who's like, okay, it's great that I can look at these rough numbers, right? I want 10 sales, I need 30 appointments, I need 120 opportunities, I need to do something every day to try and get 2 opportunities per week. But again, it just, I'm gonna continue to drive this home. It just feels like it's a bit out of my control. Like what if I'm on your team and I'm your new leasing person and I'm busy saying, Tom, like, what am I supposed to do? I only have a list that's so long. I only know so many people. I can only call them so many times. What do I do?
For that, I would be then go looking for new business, not just repeat business.
Okay.
That's where paid advertising comes in, or using different online sources that people then kind of come to you. You put the product out there and saying, I have properties that are listed for lease in this area. Are you interested? And whether that's Facebook Marketplace or any other service like that,
Or door knock maybe.
yeah, or door knock. Yeah, tell them I have a list of properties. Are you interested in them? Right?
Yeah.
That's what I would really look at.
Okay. And is there, in your mind, as an owner of a team, as someone who's done this for 9 years, is there any valid reason or excuse to not be doing this, I suppose?
All right, so I know you've been digging into me on this, and here's the reality. If you're not willing to book appointments in the real estate business, you're in the wrong business. And I think day by day doing those, like the magic pill doesn't exist here. It's the boring, mundane tasks, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, that are gonna compound over time, which are gonna create amazing results. But if you're not willing to put in that effort at the beginning, it's not gonna happen.
Right. I suppose that's the case with almost any business. I think I'm looking for the easy answers. I'm looking for like the hacks and stuff because I want to be able to help explain it to the audience. But I guess at its core, if you're not comfortable with appointment booking or selling or meeting with people or negotiating, then this is just the wrong business for you.
You're either in the wrong business or you have to hire someone to do that aspect of the business for you.
That is a great point. I think this perfectly, I mean, we've been talking about it, we've been teasing it forever now. Let's get into lesson number 9, the idea of mastering presentations.
Yeah.
And You see, you just smiled. You're like, I've been waiting the whole time to talk about this. Okay, so why what do you have to do to master presentation, and why are presentations so important?
Okay, so a lot of what we've talked about leading up to this has been how to create the opportunity, right? How to be visible, for people to even know who you are, why they would reach out to you. And now your ability's got to kick in big time, right? So when I think about presentations, whether it's me and you chatting here today, whether it's a stand-up comedian talking to 20,000 people, whether it's I get to talk to realtors at an event or something, it's the same thing. And if you went and you saw your favorite comedian 2 years ago, okay, and then they came back again and they did the exact same set, you'd be kind of disappointed, right? That's the way I look at presentations. So I think we have to keep getting better and better and creating, not necessarily like new material, but just tweaking it for what's going on right now and what's working best. Because if I meet with a past client and I sold them their house 5 years ago, well, in those 5 years, what's happened? They made new friends who were also real estate agents. They were inundated with the marketing from the local specialists in their area.
Yeah.
I'm going in thinking maybe like, oh, I've got this. Not necessarily. And if you just breeze through the presentation and don't hit on the points you're supposed to, they're going to leave and be like, oh, you know what? We didn't, because the first time they work with you, they don't know what to expect.
Right.
They're new. They're buying a house for the first time.
Yeah.
Now they're first-time sellers. They've been told things. They've been talking to their family. Maybe they've chatted with a few other real estate agents. They're expecting more. That's why I think we have to up our game in presentations. And what it comes down to with me is like, there's basically, I think, on the selling side, like 5 things a seller wants to know. Okay. They want to know why you. Why would I hire you? Right?
So are these in the order that you structure your
These are the order that
around?
I structure them.
So you start your presentation with why you.
Not well, me is the you, right? They're asking why me.
Yeah. No. So why Tom?
Yeah.
Is the first thing you lead with?
No. So actually, the first thing the presentation starts with.
Yeah.
Is I'll say, hey, first of all, thank you so much for having me over today. The way that I've run my business over the last decade is by focusing on relationships first. So I just want you to know that I actually didn't bring any paperwork today. I'm not going to ask you to sign anything. This is going to be an education session. And my total goal here is that 90% of my business every single year is repeat and referral. So I just want to do such a good job for you that at the end of this transaction, you want to tell your friends and family about me. That's how I start every single presentation, because it totally takes all the stress away. They know I'm not going to ask them to sign anything. And by the way, I'm not telling real estate agents don't bring the contract. You should still have it ready to go, but I'm never going to push on them right away, because then they're like, okay, all right, let's go through everything. Their guard is immediately down when you come in and just lay it on the line, like, here's why I'm here today. This isn't a sales pitch. It's not like press 3 times hard here. You're not going to get that from me. I'm going to tell you what I think I would want to know if I was in your position. That's how I start every presentation.
Okay. And and people believe you.
Yeah. Yeah, really. Now, I will say sometimes about 40 minutes into a presentation, they'll tell me something. I'm like, why didn't you just tell me that at the beginning?
Right, because they got their guard up and they're testing you and they're not sure. This guy's a salesperson and he probably says this to everyone.
Yep. Yeah, but most of the time, when I'm in those meetings, I'm only there because someone else referred me their name anyways.
Right.
It's because, like, I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for this person that connected us.
So is your presentation all structured around, because this is an important point, is it all structured around a semi-warm kind of introduction as opposed to a really cold, competitive, or let's say that it's you and 5 other agents they're assessing. Would you still open with the same line?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I would do it regardless, whether it's cold or someone fairly warm.
Okay.
Because I've found the same success rate in both scenarios.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I know this is obvious, at least it feels obvious to me, but you say this because you believe it and it's true.
Yeah,
right?
100%. That is truthfully how I build my business.
It's not just a pitch.
No, and if you win over people that you don't jive with, and who do you think all their friends are anyways? Just other people you're not going to jive with. So why would you want to win them over? You know? And you figure out pretty quick when you start with that, like, well, what are the things that are actually important to them? And I'll also say, like, this is a great property. Why the heck are you selling this?
Okay.
You like start, and then the biggest thing, if I could give advice to any realtor in a presentation, is ask a question and then shut up. Our problem in our industry is we cannot figure out when to stop talking. You ask a question and then they answer it, And sometimes they'll go on for like 10, 15 minutes. I'm just taking notes. By the way, bring a notepad. Make sure they see that you're actually writing down what they're saying.
Yeah.
I learned so much about people in that first kind of sit down because I just ask a question. Why are you selling?
This is amazing, and this is why I was like, wait, you start with why Tom? I was like,
No,
that
no.
seems like a really strong start, but I love this. So you explain your intentions, you work to break down their guard, you ask them a few questions just to get them talking, to get to know them better.
Yep.
And you take notes.
Yeah, and then once that's done, I'll have a booklet with me, or you can do it on an iPad, and that's where we break into the 5 categories. And
Okay, but before we do break into the 5 categories, and the reason why I want to kind of like break this out step by step is because I know from my experience in speaking to tons and tons of successful people in sales and in marketing and other areas, part of what you want to do with bringing people's guard down is you want them to open up.
Yeah.
You want them to share with you honest information, so that way you can tailor your, I guess, it's almost like a doctor, right? They want to prescribe you medication, but they need to know what's going on.
Yep.
Before they can tailor the prescription specifically for you. Oh, you need this cure.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's essentially what you're doing?
Yeah, so you're kind of feeling them out in that first conversation when you're learning about what's going on. And we had talked about earlier about when hiring an assistant, what personality type are you looking for? This is when you figure out what personality type these clients are. Maybe you already know going into it because you worked with them before, or this is a new person, but you figure out pretty quickly, like, this is someone that just wants to know, what is my property worth? How long is it going to take to sell, and what do you charge? I'm not interested in all this other stuff going on. And then there's someone that's lived in their house for 40 years, and they want to tell you about why they love the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So you're going to tailor it to that. And actually in the presentation, I'm not, and if I notice that you can see that I'm losing them on a certain thing, I'll jump to the next thing. I'm not going to waste my time on something that they're not paying attention to anyways.
Okay. This is so interesting because you're right. You know, if your home is an asset, or you want to get out, or something's going on in your life, you just want to know dollars and cents on how to make it happen.
Yeah.
When we sold our last house, my wife and I spent 7 years personally like dreaming about it, working on it, making it happen. Like, I wanted to know that whoever bought this house would cherish it as much as me, because my kids were born here, and we just turned it into everything we wanted it to be. And like, I wanted to know that it would be like the same gift we had. And those are like 2 totally different like ways to sell a house.
Totally different, and you got to figure that out early on and
Okay.
ask the questions. And if that's the scenario, what I'll typically ask, I usually keep this till the end,
Yeah.
but I'll say, what are the 5 things that you loved about living in this house?
Okay.
And I'll say, I want to know them, because when someone calls me, there's going to be other houses that are similar, but they're not going to know these. You know better than anybody else.
Like,
Why
see,
do you love this
I'm
neighborhood?
thinking about my house right now, and I'm just like, oh wow, you know, the fact that when we open windows on both sides, we can get a cross breeze through the house, and it keeps it cool, and I love it. Like,
Right. And so I want to know that. So first of all, we can work it into the marketing for the property.
Okay.
In the description, what are the words that we can use? What's the vibe that we can create for your property? And then when someone calls me and I have to explain it, I know these little things that nobody else would know except for the person that's lived there for the past 5, 10, 15
Right.
years.
oh, that's amazing. Okay, I'm so excited right now because I'm talking about my house, and you have me already.
Yeah.
Like, you have me sold on selling it already. Thanks. Okay, so you get then to the 5 things. So now that we have know what they're about, and we can kind of tailor it, what are these 5 things?
So the first thing is I give them a bit of a background. This is a very quick section of who are we?
Okay.
Why are we here? What do we do? What's the difference between us and everybody else? Okay, so that's number 1. Now, in this section, I'll make a few things very clear. I do this full time. I am not part time. I've built a career out of this. I'll also show them in graphs, or never tell them what you can show them. Show them. Show them visuals in your presentation.
Okay, so I went to film school.
Yeah,
And the very first thing they say is show, don't tell.
there you go.
And I was like, oh, that is so good. So I love to hear that now from a sales context.
Yeah. So it's like, show a graph. Show how many properties you sell in a year in your neighborhood versus the average realtor. Show the difference. And if you're newer in the industry, use your company's stats. Don't just use yours, right?
Okay.
That's another way to go about it. Or use your team stats. That's why people would join teams as well, right? So show them that right off the bat. Make sure they understand that you are full time. And this is also where you can discuss your business model. So I already told you at the beginning, I basically break down like, I'm repeat referral. I'm here to do a good job. I want to do a good job for you, so at the end of this, you tell your friends and family.
How many properties have you sold? Or
Overall?
yeah, let's say in the 9 years. Or how many transactions have you
Over
been a part of?
500.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And is that, so I'm wondering, as you show this visual, like, is that an impressive number?
Well, I do per year. Like I break down per year.
Wow.
So like,
and then do you say like the average realtor would sell 3?
It's funny. Yeah. So literally the chart in my book is we sold 126 properties last year. The average realtor in my marketplace sold 3. So they see the visual.
Okay.
And I also say to them, so when I'm explaining our numbers and success rate and on what percentage of properties we actually sell and what our average list versus sale price is and all those other aspects, I'm doing it based on real data, not based on 3.
Right.
So it's enough volume to actually have real results and data you can trust.
Okay, so that's number 1.
Yeah.
And you hit these key points, you show these visuals. This is amazing because you're already distinguishing yourself from everyone else who can be a little bit more fly-by-night, let's say,
Yep.
or maybe hobbyists.
Yep.
What's the second thing you do?
The second one is what's currently happening in their market. So this is micro market, not everything, not what you're hearing on the news. Now, there's a term in real estate called months of inventory. And my question always to every seller is, have you ever heard of the term months of inventory? And the answer 99.9% of the time is no. Now, this is my first opportunity to explain something to them that they do not know. Because a lot of people think they know as much as us, if not more.
Yeah.
Okay, and
Why do I
that's
need
fine.
a realtor?
Right.
I can, all they do is put a sign up. It's easy. Anyone will buy.
So this is where you're creating the value gap, that you know something that they can't just Google. You're bringing something to the table, you're teaching them something they didn't know previously before they met you. So, months of inventories you take at the end of every month, how many active listings were available, and then you divide it by how many sales happen in an area, in a property type, and it gives you a number. And it's the best way of understanding, are you in a buyer's market, a seller's market, or a balanced market?
Okay.
So anything under the number 3 is a seller's market, 4 to 6 is a balanced market, and 6+ is a buyer's market. So I will actually then bring out the data for their community, and we'll do the math together.
And community, you're not talking about like the city. You're talking
No.
about like a zip code or something.
I'm really
right?
getting really into it because it doesn't matter what's happening over here.
Yeah.
What matters, it's happening right here in your neighborhood, in your property type, in your price range. We're going to focus on that first. If we don't have enough data there, we can expand out.
Yeah.
We're going to do the math together, figure out the number, and then I'm going to show you what that means for you. So that's showing them what's happening in the market, and then a few other numbers we'll talk about is, okay, well, what's the average days on market? How long does it take for the average property to sell? What percentage of properties that are listing are actually selling? So you can list a property, that's easy. How many of them are actually selling? If they go onto the market at $100, are they getting $98? Are they getting $99? Are they getting $102? So what's your list price versus actual sale price? Because the sale price, and if it's sold, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
If you listed it but it never sells, it doesn't matter, right? So I'm trying to show them data that it's publicly available, but packaging it together for them so they can understand in a context of like, this is what's happening in your neighborhood right now, so that they feel like they're educated in the process.
I love this because I imagine at a certain point you have to talk, and we'll get to this, you have to talk price.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And everyone goes like, my home is worth, my condo is worth X.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to bring people to reality. Sometimes you might surprise them. But what you're almost doing is like priming them for the logical case for whatever your recommendation will be, because you're saying like, well, let's just look at reality.
Yep.
This is what's happening in your market. This is what's happening with homes like yours. This is whether it's a buyer's market or seller's market. This is how long things are saying, whether they're selling for over list or not, and the strategies people are using in your areas. And you're basically just showing them that you've done your homework, you know what you're talking about. And then when you do get to whatever that moment is of this is what your home is worth, I believe, which is the number everyone cares about.
Yep.
You have facts to back it up.
That's it. Everything that I'm going to tell them is not based on a gut feeling. It's based on numbers that I can back up. They might not agree with, they might not like it, but it's hard to argue the fact of like, okay, well, this is the data. We don't have to like the data, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
Right?
Amazing.
So then that would take me to number 3, which is, well, how are we going to market your property? Okay, so we've talked about, why us, what's going on, well, what are we going to do to market it? I think there is no skill anymore to a realtor just putting your property on the MLS system. Anyone can do that. Anyone can do that. They can put your sign in the lawn.
Right. So they can take some photos.
Yep.
They can write a charming, they can add the adjectives, a fixer-upper or a beautiful home or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Imagine your kids at the breakfast bar.
Sure.
And people can put it on Zillow or MLS or what have you. But that's not enough.
Everybody can do that. So if everyone can do that, well, you can do that, but that doesn't make you stand out at all, right?
Okay.
So I would try to figure out in this moment, like, who's the potential buyer for this property? And I would talk with the seller about that. So here's I will ask them too, who do you think is going to buy your house? Then I'll go, okay, I'll pull actually demographic reports for their area. What percentage of people that live there, what languages do they speak? Do we have to run an ad in a different language? Because those are people that are buying into the area.
Because the neighborhood might be turning over.
Yeah,
so
you want to know
they've been there for 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
There may be new, different types of cultures, backgrounds, or families moving in, or what have you.
Absolutely, and I would want to know that information if I was selling a property.
Right.
So you're really digging into that, and then you take it to, like, the one thing that I think I have that a lot of realtors don't have in my marketplace is we have a good following on social. Now, we talked about this earlier. 70% of my followers on Instagram are other real estate agents, and a lot of them are in my market. Now, at first I was a little bit worried. I'm like, well, who am I making this content for? I thought I was making this for clients. Why am I making this for other realtors, right? That went through my mind. And now, I can post a coming soon, or I have this property coming, and I get 15 DMs on Instagram from other realtors saying, I have a client for that. Your agent can put it on MLS. I can do that too, but I can also get you all this interest before we even hit the market. And it's like a secret list nobody has access to.
That's how we sold our last place.
Yeah, and it works.
We had like 6 showings before it went on the market, and then finally the day it listed or whatever, it was just like lots and lots of offers.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of power in that. That's amazing. Okay, so that's number 4.
That would be number 3.
Number 3. Oh wow, we still have more to go through.
We got 2 more. The last 2 are the most fun ones, right?
Okay.
What's your property worth?
Yeah.
And how much do I charge? What do I charge to sell it, right?
Okay.
Don't work for free, right? So what do I charge? So what the property's worth. So now, to get ahead of this, I will probably already have sent them a video, like a screen share video, going over the main comparables for their house the day before the appointment.
Oh wow! So you'll pull different things that have sold recently that are kind of similar in the area.
Yep.
And you'll do a quick analysis, and you'll actually send them that in advance.
I'll send them that in advance because I want them to watch it. And I will say that when you get to these presentations with sellers, the one aspect of it that takes the longest amount of time is discussing the price.
Okay.
Because you got to go through everything step by step, and most realtors will bring their MLS sheets, they take out their highlighter, then that's fine, that all works good. But I'd rather give them all the information ahead of time, the day before, they watch the video, and then when it gets the price, I go, did you watch the video? And they go, yeah. Okay, do you have any questions on pricing? They're like, we're kind of on the same page. Because again, I showed them. I didn't just say, Mark, your house is worth this amount of money.
Did you figure this out on your own, or is this from coaching, this process?
The video CMA was something that I had just started playing around with and found cool results from. Okay, so I don't think I invented it, but it's worked well.
Because what you're doing psychologically is, sales is a very emotional thing.
Yeah.
And as soon as you introduce rationality into it, it becomes a logical piece.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to bring people back to the emotion.
Mm-hmm.
But so far what I'm hearing is your number 1 is emotional.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Your number 2 is emotional. Your number 3 is emotional. And because you've already sent the rationale, the logic in advance, you're now keeping people emotionally engaged as opposed to turning it into a logical conversation.
And some of the pushback I've had when I tell other realtors that I send them the data up front, they go, well, you can't give them all the information before you meet with them.
Because there'd be no reason to meet with you. That's what they say, right?
Well, if that's the case, then they're just going to list with their cousin anyways, and I just saved myself a meeting I didn't need to go to because they were never going to use me. Right. It's okay. I've never been burned from sending it beforehand. I'm okay with it. Here's all the information. I'm willing to give it to you. And when we get to the pricing, I still bring all the comparables with me and we still go through it.
But because they have questions or
they've watched the video and it's like, okay, the one thing I love about real estate is it doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't actually matter what any seller thinks. All that matters is what is the market dictating the price of this property. Right. So we can have a strategy, we can look at days on market, we can figure out all these different aspects of it, but none of that matters if the buyers aren't interested.
Right.
So all that matters is what is that one buyer willing to pay at that one moment. So pricing is subjective. You have to figure out what's going to happen. And we look at a time chart as we know we want an A buyer. An A buyer is going to give you your price, your closing date, no conditions, pop the champagne, everybody's happy, right? The A buyer comes in the first week, week and a half, because scarcity is a real thing. People want what they can't have. The A buyer is competing with someone else maybe, or they don't want it. At 2 weeks, you get the B buyer. A few conditions, but a good price. 3 weeks, 4 weeks, you get the C buyer, then you get the D buyer, the tire kicker. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, but even if there's nothing wrong with the house, it's just overpriced. If you get to week 5, week 6, week 7 on the market, buyers are gonna go, oh, there must be something wrong with that one. It's become stale.
Right.
So you wanna do it right the first time in that first 30 days, but really that first 2 weeks to get the A buyer or the B buyer, because they're willing to give you what you want off the bat if you've done it correctly.
And they are worried that someone else will snatch it.
And you know what I always ask sellers is, hey, if you were a buyer right now and you sent me a house that's been on the market for 52 days, and I know the average in the area is 14 days, and I told you to offer full price, what would you say? No way. So why would someone do that on you just kind of flip it to put them in the perspective of the potential buyer.
Okay, I love this. Is there any other aspect to the presentation that we really need to master as opposed to just the steps? Are there certain skills?
Yeah.
Are there certain ways we carry ourselves as we either enter or leave even? Because
Yeah.
you can nail this and then just be like, okay,
Yeah.
thanks, I'll see you next time.
So actually the final page of the presentation is a blank calendar.
Okay.
And I do that on purpose because people always like, because when I'm done and then we talk about the commission, everything like that, and then when I'm done, they'll say like, okay, well, how much time does it take to get to the market? What do we need to know? And I'll always ask, okay, I just talked a lot there. Is there anything I didn't cover? Any questions that you have? And my favorite thing is when they go, nope, that was great, thanks. Like that makes me feel good that I did a good job at going through everything step by step with them. Then the blank calendar, okay, well, if you want to do staging, this is when the consultation happens. You know, if we want to get photos done, here's when we can get to the market. You kind of plan it out with them. And then it just goes into everything after that. And some people right away are like, okay, let's sign the paperwork. But I don't have to be like, okay, I don't have to be the one that brings it up.
Okay, so what about, this all sounds great when you're in a hot market, when you have an amazing home that'll show well, but what about the home that requires a lot of work that people are unwilling to do, or just when, you know, they love their home, but it's like completely off, like outdated, or, and they're not on the same page as you.
Yeah, I think, listen, everything sells for the right price. Everything in life, okay? Everything sells. If you price it correctly, it will sell, right? Regardless of what you think of it or anyone else, if it's priced correctly, it will sell. And that's what I've learned in real estate. The properties you think are never going to sell, if they're priced correctly, they will sell, right?
But are you coming in and saying like, maybe, and then maybe this is covered in staging, but are you coming in and saying like, I really think just a fresh coat of paint will help?
Yes.
I really am worried about curb appeal, so let's get some flowers in here. Like,
yeah.
Are you doing that kind of stuff in the first meeting or no?
Sometimes it depends on the situation. If they're a hard no of like, we're not willing to do anything, we want to put it on the market, okay, I understand that. If that's the case, here's the pricing strategy we need to take to get it sold for you. Okay. If you're willing to do these extra things, which might take an extra month to get on the market and spend a little bit of money on it, but you're going to get the ROI, I think we could sell for this amount. So it's just making it clear to them, like, if you're not willing to do it, that's totally fine, but here's what you're worth. And if you're willing to do it, or some people actually, they want to spend way too much money. And I'm like, no, don't spend that much because you're not even going to get that back in sale price.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need to add all these fancy things. Like, just get what needs to be done. You don't need to overspend either, because a lot of people fall into that trap.
I remember doing a walk around with my real estate agent, and I'm taking him through the basement. I was like, okay, so I'm looking at the joists, unfinished basement. Yeah. I'm like, okay, so that'll all be vacuumed up. I'm like, that wall behind the washing machine, we're gonna go ahead and put a fresh coat of white paint on that so it looks clean. Like, I wanted my place to look like spectacular. I wanted people to walk in and be like, wow. So like, I wanted, we repainted baseboards, and he's just like, you don't have to do that. You don't, trust me, Mark, you don't have to paint behind the washer and the dryer in your laundry room. And I was like, I wanted it to like look the part. So I can see how maybe people can go overboard or what have you, but are you the one who's going to tell everyone what the right amount of work is?
Yeah, we try our best, right? Like you can never perfectly figure out for every house exactly what needs to be done and everything. But you know, if a client is gung ho on they're going to do this, I'm also not going to get in their way.
Right.
Right. Like I'll give them my opinion, but it's not my decision. Like I'll tell them what I think is the best course of action. But if they want to take another avenue, that's okay. It's again like that's
well, my
job.
belief and my rationale was like if people come in and go, and there's no dust or there's no cobwebs, or they open the furnace and inside the furnace is clean, they're going to be like, okay, this is a well taken care of home. Like that was my rationale.
You were trying to sell to you.
Okay.
Right?
Yes,
like
I was.
You thought the buyer of your house is you.
Yeah.
So
okay,
so maybe
interesting.
that's the rationale as well in those circumstances.
Do people fall in that trap
Oh,
where they just
100%.
immediately are like, oh, well, naturally the next person who's going to buy is exactly like me,
Yeah.
and that's bad thinking. Now that you say that, right?
A little. I mean, like that person exists, right?
Yeah.
And a house that shows better is going to sell quicker than a house that doesn't show very well, and especially in a market where only 25 to 30% of new listings are actually selling in that first 30 days.
Okay.
You got to stand out. And if you're competing in those type of markets, you need to make sure that you know what your competition is. So if there's 10 properties on the market, like let's use an easy number here, if you're not ranked in the top 3, you're not selling.
Okay.
And you know, horse races, right? Like what are the odds of a horse winning if they're not in the top 5 in the final sprint?
It's just reduced.
Very low.
Yeah.
So you want to be at the top. Yeah.
Okay. Now I did with my realtor as well. We did tour a bunch of comps.
Yeah.
Like we
Smart
booked
idea.
appointments as a buyer
Smart
and we
idea.
toured them, and I looked around and I was like, whoa. And he's like, see, Mark, I told you you don't have to paint behind.
Yeah.
I told you you don't have to paint behind the dryer and the washer and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. So would you recommend that as well then?
Yeah, I think if you can take a look and show them what their competition is,
Yeah.
looking at pictures is one thing.
Yeah.
Getting
Walking
in
the
there and
space.
actually taking a look. And the tough thing too is in a changing market, we always want to look at actual data like that's sold. But in a changing market, you have to also look at what your competition is, because it doesn't matter what happened 2 months ago if things are totally different now. You have to look at what you're competing with. And if a market's going downwards, at what point do you just have to sell for the price you're happy with, even if it's slightly below the last sale? Because if your competition sells for 40 grand less than that number, now you're going to have to trend down to them because that's the new comparable. Where in an upwards market, the next sale typically beats the last sale and you go up like this. So it's easier to kind of wait out, you'll get your price. In a downwards market, it's not as easy. But most of the time, sellers become buyers. So if you're buying in a hot market, you're selling in a hot market. If you're vice versa, slow market. So it's kind of relative on the net gains on either end of it.
So let's say that I'm one of your new team members. Yeah. I'm going to keep coming back to this question because I think it just puts the point on it. What are the top 3 things that I need to figure out and master for presentations?
Okay, what are the main 5 or 10 questions that every single seller or buyer is going to ask you?
Okay.
What are
it's
they?
always the same, is
It's
it?
always basically the same. What are your answers going to be? You should be able, it should be muscle memory at that point, like how you answer those questions.
Okay.
Because everyone's going to ask the same questions. Come prepared, like come over prepared for everything, because you never know who you're meeting with, what their expectations are. And like, this sounds so obvious, but like get there 30 minutes early. Like sit outside the house, visualize how the appointment's gonna go. There's an extremely high producer in my marketplace that does like crazy numbers. And I asked her, I was like, what do you do when you go into appointments? She says, I do about 5 to 10 minutes of meditation in my car. And then I tell myself, because she believes so heavily, I tell myself how bad I would feel for these people if they didn't pick me. Because I know the service level I'm going to provide to them is just so much greater than my competition. Imagine having that mindset when you walk in the door.
Yeah.
And it's not cockiness. It's just pure confidence. Like I can look at a seller in the eyes and go, like, really, I know my system works. I know if you list with us, I will do what I say I'm going to do. We're going to get you the result that you're looking for, and you're going to enjoy the experience because I've been doing it year after year after year. Like I really believe in what I'm saying. So I think that's part of it as well. You better believe what you're saying. And be curious, ask questions.
And so, but if you're newer at this and you don't have the sales or the data or the backup, what do you draw on to get that confidence?
I would actually say if you're newer, you're going to presentations with your team leader.
Go with them.
Go with them, watch them. Like I think a new agent, you know, you see like a puppy that just follows around their owner for the first like 6 months of its life. That's you. You're just following, you're shadowing a team member. You're going on all their appointments. You're learning everything, the mannerisms, what they're talking about, what the questions are going to be, because you're going to learn from just experience. You got to go do it.
And if you're totally alone in this, is it is it possible, or is this a real stretch to ask your competition to spend time with them?
I think that your competition, well, if you really are showing enough to even ask that question, your competition is going to want to hire you anyways.
Will they?
Well, I think so, yeah. Because you're showing that you have the go-get attitude and you're willing to ask those questions. With your competition, you're going to realize pretty quickly like who's actually willing to share and who's not.
Okay, so this brings us to number 10, lesson number 10, the final lesson.
here.
Let's go. This is, you were just saying this is your favorite.
By far my favorite. Like
Okay.
really is my favorite thing to talk about.
We're talking about lead gen. Okay, so we've talked about visibility. We've talked about all of the stuff. Let's talk about lead gen. What are the ways to build lead gen in a real estate business?
Okay, so there's obviously more ways than just this, but these are the three that I think you should focus on first.
Okay.
Like to really build it out. So we'll break them into three different sections. The first one we've spent some time talking about, but I want to get into it really, the breakdown of it is the database, the repeat and referral, the connectivity plan, the people that you know that you've worked with before, have referred you business. That is going to be the core. If I could only pick one thing, that's how I would build my business out.
Okay.
Now,
So you spend all your time, all your money, all your effort on this.
I would start here as well because it's time intensive but not money intensive.
Okay.
Yeah, so the way that I think about this, so if you follow a plan, and we talked about the plan every month, staying in touch and doing the client parties and micro events, everything like that, for every 100 people in your database, I think you should be able to minimum get a 10% return. So that means 10 sales per 100 people. Okay? So I actually...
And the people in your database
Yeah.
are who?
People in our database is someone that you're actively working with,
Yes.
has already bought and sold with you, or if you're a newer realtor, it's the people that you believe will transact with you, and you
In the
if
next
you,
120 days.
if you well not because that's active business.
Okay.
So it can be past clients as well, right? But it's just like if I walked by you in a mall and I stopped and said, "Hey, how you doing?" and first name basis, they can go in your database. But I'll kind of dig into that as well because that's how you start with it, and then you gotta mold it over time.
Okay.
When I talk about database, I just have over 300 people in my database.
300.
Yeah, it's not huge.
So you've sold 500 homes.
Yep.
You've been doing this for 9 years.
Yep.
You have, 7,000 subs on YouTube, and
Yeah.
you have followers, and you're getting DMs off, while we're on a break and all of this
Yep.
stuff. And you only have 300 people there.
Yeah. That's my A database list. Now I do have other lists that are from online lead generation, people that have reached out, but I'm very tight with my database because I don't think I can get the same result if I keep just growing it to grow it. And I talk to realtors that say they have 10,000 people in your database. I'm like, do you know their names?
Right. That's more like an email list.
It's an email list. A database, I think, is different than an email list.
Okay.
A database is your true people, your advocates, the people that are going to work with you again, that are going to refer you business. Like, these are the people. And I think as a single agent, you can have up to 300 people in there and still get a pretty good return. After that, if you go over that, you're going to need help, administration, building out more systems, things like that. So I think if you do a good job, you can get a 10% return on 300 people, which is selling 30 homes a year, which I know a lot of realtors would be really happy with that result. If you do a better job, you can get a 15% return. Now, we've got a 22% return last year, so I know it's doable.
22%.
So we're selling over 70 properties a year just from one source of business, which is the database.
Let's take a step back. Just give me the 5, 6, 7, 8 ways that someone earns the right to be in your database.
I think if it's someone that you've worked with, if you bought or sold real estate with them, they can be in your database,
Okay.
right? If it's someone that hasn't transacted with you, but they refer you all their friends and family, they can be in your database. And even if it's someone that says, hey, listen, my aunt's in real estate, if I don't use her, there's going to be an issue at the family dinners. I'm not dealing. You can still put that person in because even though they have to use their family member, that doesn't mean they're not going to refer you.
Right.
Right. So don't just say like, oh, that person's totally out. Right. But then go through your database and try to figure out like who have people left your community? Have they moved outside your selling area? Like who do you have to tweak over time? So I'm looking through my database probably at least once a quarter and think like, who do I need to add here that's not in here? Is there any people that need to be taken out of it? Because I know how much time and energy I'm going to put into this list of people.
So you have your database, 300 people. I imagine, like if you're just starting out, it's totally fine to have like, what, 20, 30 people in there?
You
start with
to build
one?
a list of one and then maybe get to 50.
Yeah.
and then build from there. And by the way, I built up my database from mostly strangers because I did a ton of leases my first year in real estate.
Yeah.
When I would run ads online and everywhere I could find anybody, just working with strangers, that's how I built up my database. So it wasn't just
So you don't have to be
people that I
overly
knew.
precious about this.
No.
Okay.
Especially when you're building it out. Just get people in there and try to deliver things to them that are valuable. Because if you've already done your job for them
Yes.
and you're still staying in touch, and they know there's nothing on the line for me now. I've done my job. I got paid for helping them.
Yeah.
So why was he still reaching out and giving me information? Well, because I recognized, the lifelong of a client, and that they're going to refer me if I did a good job for them.
Do people ever tell you to kind of shut up and go away?
Yeah, some. But I think if I sent an email out to my database every month and said, here are the 5 reasons why I'm so great at my job, I get a lot of unsubscribes. No one cares about that, right? What they want to know is, here's what's going on in my neighborhood. Here's some free home show tickets. It's very easy for me to call someone in my database because by the way, I still do pick up the phone.
Right.
Like I still go back to that and say, hey Mark, did you get the home show tickets? Yeah, I got them. All right, have a great time with the show. I don't need to bring up real estate. Real estate is not life insurance. It's fun to talk about. People want to talk about it.
Are you suggesting people don't want to talk about life insurance?
Well, not as much as they want to talk about real estate. They'll bring it up. They'll bring it up in I don't have to bring it up. They'll bring it up in the conversation.
Okay. So that's number one. That's the thing that you start with, you focus on. If you could only do one thing, that would be the one thing. But you mentioned there were 3 lead generation sources in your business. So what else are you doing?
Yeah, the second one I would classify as alliances.
Okay.
Now, this is kind of B2B instead of B2C. So when I look at alliances, there's a few. So, you can be in a BNI group, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a strategic.
Do they work?
I don't know. I'm not in one, but I'm just saying that's an example of.
That was a setup. They do work. I was in one for 7 years, and the only people who made money in the BNI group that I was in was the home inspector, the insurance person, and the real estate person.
So they work for real estate agents.
Yeah, didn't work for my business, but I was there for 7 years. They made a lot of money.
So there you go. That's proof. So, is it a BNI group? And then another big source of business is mortgage brokers. So they're on the financing side. They speak with clients. Now, I find mortgage brokers are very smart. They get an entire real estate office to work with them. And it's a great business model for them. It is what it is. It's very smart. But it's a one-way street. If you're sending everyone you know to the same mortgage broker and they're not sending you anybody back, it's not a great business relationship.
Did you call them up?
Well, I would call them because I promise you, they are sending their opportunities to somebody.
Somewhere.
You're just not their number one.
Yeah.
So with a mortgage broker, I would say take them out for lunch and make it very clear. And I believe in different states, there's rules in terms of you have to give 3 people of suggestion to people. So it can't just be one person. So make that clear as well. But a lot of us have our go-to people. Meet with them and say, hey, this is how I'm building up my business. I want to share my clients with you because I know you're really good at what you do. I don't want any points or all this. I don't want cash back. I want you to take great care of my clients, do a good job for them. And if an opportunity arises that you can refer someone to me, I want to be your number one choice. But you have to make that crystal clear to them because if you don't, I promise you there's somebody else they're sending it to.
Okay. We got BNI. We got mortgage brokers. Who else are you turning to on the B2B side?
Other realtors.
See, that's the thing that just, I think, would probably just scare most people, right? So who are these other realtors?
Well, these other realtors you're going to meet through coaching, you're going to meet through going to conferences, you're going to meet through doing events with your company, things like that.
Yeah.
If you're the person that goes around an event and hands out your business card, that's not a great way to meet people. They're going to take it and they're going to throw it out. If you're the one that don't be that person.
To be honest with you, the last time someone handed me a business card was years ago. It was like 3 years ago, and I was friendly with them, so I wasn't like being too insulting. But I was like, "Thank you, I'll throw this out for you." That was kind of my response. But we still have business cards, do we?
I have a business. You have to show condos and certain. You have to do business cards.
Oh, because you got to leave them behind.
But
right?
yeah, exactly.
Okay,
but
great. So your business cards.
But they're not really they're really just to show that you are in a property.
Okay.
But what I'm getting at is like create real relationships. Print out a map of North America or the world, wherever you work, wherever you're watching this, and look at the different markets outside yours and put a pin in them and say, who do you know that trades in those markets?
Okay.
reach out to those people or send them a personal video and say, hey, I'm creating a referral database so that when I have clients moving out to your area, I can connect them with you. Are you interested in being a part of my program? It's an obvious answer. It's like, yeah. And if you let them know, automatically now you've introduced yourself to them even if they didn't know you before. And then who are they going to think of if they have a client coming to your neck of the woods? Right? So building out that referral database with realtors is extremely strong. And then on the social side of things, I kind of think it's funny. Real estate agents, we post something on Instagram and 80% of the likes are just other people in the industry. It's kind of like we're all just patting each other on the back, right? So I recognize this. Like, okay, so the content that I'm going to post on Instagram is going to be talking to real estate agents. I know my clients are still there too, but the percentage is much lower. If I'm putting out enough content and showing them that I'm the guy in my marketplace, the amount of business I've got from people like, hey, Tom, we've never met before, but I follow you online. I've got a client coming to your area. Can you help them? Is astounding. Like, I think we did 24 sales last year from inbound referrals from other realtors, and mostly the conversation started as a DM on Instagram.
Right, back to visibility.
Yep. But you then you build that in with your repeat and referral, and you're starting to rock along here.
Yeah.
Like you've already got the people that know, like, and trust you. You've got a system in place for that. Then mortgage brokers are sending you business. BNI is sending you business. Other realtors are sending you business. You know, maybe it's lawyers. There's lots of other people you could add to this list. But the ones that have worked really well for me are mortgage brokers and other real estate agents outside your market.
Very cool. Like, I'm trying to, like, gut check, like, okay, what are the excuses? You know, what's scary about this? Where could I screw up? It just all makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Why aren't more people doing it?
Well, I think like everything, there's work involved behind it.
Okay.
And you will almost have to have a system in place for your referral partners as well as you do just for your actual clients, right? You have to almost follow us and make sure you're staying in touch with them, letting them know what's happening in your market if they have clients that are potentially going to move there. And like, go out with them, have fun, go out after the events, like have a good time with people. Don't just, like, go do the things you're maybe not comfortable with. Like, after a long event, I want to go hide away for 3 days. Like, I do not want to see human beings, but I know it's probably smart for my business long term if I go out and create relationships with people. Because if I'm, let's say I'm somewhere outside where I live at an event, I'm there for 2 days. After that, I'm not going to see these people for a year. I might as well leave an impression and have some fun with them and know that you're a human being.
It's so funny you mentioned that. I was talking to a friend who is in Florida, and he's a probate lawyer within real estate, but he's a probate lawyer, and I'm talking to him. I met him at a conference, and we connected after the conference ended. Everyone flew out. I had nothing to do for the afternoon. I was like, I'm just going to go down to the lobby, and there was only 3 people out of 180 people left, and he happened to be one of these people. So I don't know anyone. He doesn't know me. We just sit and talk for hours. And we were talking the other day, and we're planning our next event. And I go, oh man, I'm so excited. This was saying, I'm so excited to see you and meet some other people. And he's like, Mark, you got to come out to the dinners. And I'm like, I'm just honestly, because I'm working these events. I'm moderating, I'm emceeing, I'm hosting panels, I'm doing all of this stuff. I'm just like, I'm like exhausted. He's like, if you don't come out to dinner, if you don't meet people, none of this really matters. And that bothers me a little bit as an introvert.
Yeah, I hear you.
But you either can hate the game and not get any results, or you can just play the game. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to sidle up beside you, buddy. You're like, I'm going to be your wingman because I don't really know very many people. Please just let me tag along. I'm going to be that puppy.
The buddy system.
I'm going to be that puppy that's following him around.
Yeah.
So I think it's really good advice.
And by the way, when you talk about introverts, real estate is an industry that you would think the extroverts would succeed at. No. The introverts in this industry do very, very well because they're still people. He keeps it. People.
Still people.
Keep getting that one wrong, but they're really good with other people, and you don't have to be this loud, everywhere person to succeed in this industry like maybe you think you have to be. You have to know what you're talking about. People need to know that you exist. You have to do what you say you're going to do, and I've said that a few times, but it's so clear. And like, if I say I'm going to call you on Friday, I'm going to call you on Friday. Because that's how I run my business. If I don't do that, I'm failing the way that I'm trying to run my business, and I want my clientele to know that. Simple, but powerful.
Yeah. Okay, so that brings us through the first two,
Yeah.
right? Which is repeat and referral and your database.
Yep.
Number two, I love it, the B2B side, setting up more strategic alliances and partnerships in different geographies and start to build referral sources. What's number three?
I would classify number three as just new business.
Okay.
So now repeat and referral is obvious of what it is. The B2B is pretty clear, and like that's other business relationships. New business is someone that I didn't know existed until they reached out to me. Okay? So there's really two main categories I have on this right now in my business. The first one's YouTube. So I put out
I'm just laughing
Yeah.
because it's like, it's YouTube. It's like,
you ever heard of this thing
it's
called
like,
YouTube?
have we heard of YouTube?
So I have a very, very small following in the grand scheme of things on YouTube, but you know, the videos will get 5,000 to 10,000 views. They'll do well, get a lot of comments. And then I have a little call to action at the beginning of every video saying, you know, if you like what you learned in this video, because it's mostly education based, some of it's a bit dry, frankly, but people are interested, you can book an appointment with me or my team. And it just takes them to a link and they can book an appointment. So I think this year already, we've sold 16 properties to people that reach out to us from YouTube this calendar year. And the appointments coming in are like 3 to 4 a week. And we talked about appointments already, like this counts, but they're coming to me. Like they're just booking it in my system, on my calendar, on my time. And it's amazing. Now,
How many years have you been doing video for?
I've been doing video for like 7 years.
Okay.
But I will tell you, I only became strategic about YouTube in the last year and a half. Like really following a system, following a plan, and getting results.
And following a system, following a plan, getting results. How many months passed before something happened that when you were like, oh, this is kind of cool?
Like 7 months.
7 months.
Yeah.
So even though you've been doing this for many, many years and you now have the time to focus on it because you've done a lot of these other things we've spoken about, 7 months of effort started to turn into business.
Yeah, that first 6 months, it really does feel like you're talking to no one.
Yeah.
A brick wall, right?
Yeah.
You're like, hey guys, welcome back to the video. You're like, no one's watching, there's no one here. But then you start building out and people start watching. And I started creating this content thinking when I'm looking at the camera, I'm talking to my database. I'm talking to the 300 people that already know me. I'm making this for them. Okay, now I've already made it for them. Why don't I leverage it by putting it on all these other platforms? And why don't I have little call to actions in it? So that is new business for me. And it's almost like they reach out and they put you on this very miniature pedestal. They're like, is this Tom? I'm like, yeah. They're like, we watch your videos. I'm like, cool. Like, you know, like one person literally said to me last week, they're like, just want to say off the bat, like, big fan. I'm like, come on. Big fan. But you don't think of it like that, but they're lying in bed watching you on their phone, watching your video. And they really feel like they know you because they've been watching your content for so long. And then when they want to do something, they want to work with you because you're the one giving them the information.
Okay, so when we kicked off Lesson 10, which is all about lead generation, you mentioned there were many things you can do, but the three that are working for you the most, right?
Yeah.
The repeat and referral, build up the database.
Yep.
Number 2, the B2B and alliances. Number 3, content and YouTube. Each one of those takes time. Is there something else that we can be doing? I mean, we have to do all these things, right? They are the things.
Right.
Is there something else we can do that will get quicker results to fill in that gap while we're building these up?
Yes, but I will say, like, don't try to build all three of these at the same time.
Okay.
Because it will be overwhelming. I would start in one section.
Which one?
Well, I would start with repeat and referral. Repeat
Number
and
one.
referral always. Database is it. Like that is your. Talk to any successful realtor. That's where their business comes from. That's going to be number one. And I would focus in, like, if you're not getting a good return on your repeat and referral, I would not start a YouTube channel yet. I would go back here and figure out why I'm only getting a 5% return. What can I do with my system and staying in touch with my clients that can get me to a 10, 20% return?
And if it's a low return, it could be what? Poor quality of people in
Potentially the wrong people in your database.
Wrong people in the database. Your outreach, monthly outreach isn't hitting or landing. You're like me all the time and you're not giving enough value. Like, are those the reasons?
I think absolutely, yeah. Or you're not consistent with your outreach and staying in touch. Where if they get a calendar from you in December, you're not doing your job to stay in touch with your clients. It's gotta, that can still be it.
I'm only smiling because I get a few of those.
No, the calendars are still fine.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, on top of that,
Yeah.
you got to do all the other things as well. If it's just the calendar, that's the issue. Yeah, if you want to get something done right away, I still would always say repeat and referral first. There's not really a hack to make it happen faster. That's the thing, is that there is patience involved here. But what I've seen is there's enough proof that this system works, that following this system month after month will get you the results. But everything we've talked about, the database, the B2B, the creating new business, none of it will give you the result you're looking for right now. It's going to happen in 6, 8, 12 months from now. So if you're looking for a result right now, a really quick thing you could do is reach out to everybody you know and just say, hey, I'm serving all my clients right now, trying to get a sense of how I can help you this year. And you give them 4 options. And you say, are you looking to buy or sell real estate this year? It's like a little survey. I'm not looking to move this year. I'd be interested to know what my home is worth, or thinking of getting into the investment property space. So you ask them these 4 questions, and not everyone responds, but a few people will get back to you and be like, you know what, I would consider it. I even had someone last year that said, I'm not interested, and then 2 months later, on that same email thread, was like, hey, we're looking at selling now. So it's just touching base. Again, it's not like a thing that you have to sell right now, none of that. Here's what's going on, answer the question. So if you want now business, it's called the 1 question survey. I learned this from another great realtor in my marketplace. You send that out to everyone you know, and you'll be shocked at how many opportunities you're going to create right now.
I love that.
Yeah.
Now, we've all talked about, like, I don't want to call it the new school of business, but when we were driving over to this cottage, when we were driving out into the country, I was describing to the crew, like you, and I was talking about, and naturally I was like, well, he's a young guy. He seems to be building business, through content marketing and through sales and through team, and like it feels like that we're in this generation of entrepreneurship, and we kind of do things a certain way. But it doesn't mean that old things don't work. So like, are there some tactics that we can kind of dust off that like are still working today that would surprise the hell out of everyone watching this?
Yes, direct mail marketing
Direct mail.
works amazingly well for real estate. It truly does.
Like how? Because I mean, I get so much stuff that I just like, I'm like, okay, blue box recycling,
So I think the reason why is because on that stuff, it's probably a me promotion. It's, hey, look at me, or look what I sold. But if you sent out direct mail that had actual stats for the neighborhood, here's what's going on right now in the neighborhood. Are you interested in how things have changed? And so what we're doing actually right now is we're sending direct mail with stats for the neighborhood. And on the other side, it's just a big QR code. So we're bringing the QR code back because it's made a comeback, right? And you just scan here to book a seller appointment with Tom. It's so simple.
Yeah.
Big QR code, on the other side, it's data. But so I farm 10,000 condos every single month, and I've done it for almost 4 years now.
So what do you buy a list, or what do you mean?
No, it's just like you can send through the post.
Okay.
And so you can do direct mail, which is more expensive because there's actually a stamp on it.
Yeah.
Or you can do flyers.
Okay.
Flyers are much cheaper, and it depends on your market and what it costs,
Of course.
and who drops it off and everything. But man, farming an area consistently.
Sorry, which one are you doing? Are you doing direct mail or
I'm doing
flyers?
direct. I'm doing flyers.
Flyers.
Yeah, I'm calling it direct mail marketing because it still gets into their inbox.
Right.
But it's flyers. It's
Okay.
flyers. It goes to their property, and it's consistent. Now, also, our flyers, we know that most are going to be this size.
Yeah.
Ours are this size. So they also stick out in the pile. That's strategically done.
And are you using like weird colors and things like that?
Yellow's the color if you really want to stand out. Not aesthetically, like just a very yellow flyer.
Yeah.
With you could put a black and white text on a yellow flyer, and if you sent it consistently, you do business. It's not sexy. It's not beautiful, but the results are there.
If anyone's seen all my social stuff, it's all yellow.
Yeah, but there you go. So there's something behind
Yeah.
that. You'd be shocked at how many people will book an appointment with me online on my website through a flyer. They're booking it at a time. It says seller consultation, so I know when I'm going, where I'm going. Sometimes I'll wake up and be like, oh, I have an appointment today. Like, it's really that kind of systemized. I'll go in. They'll sometimes have a stack of flyers. I'm like, oh, they saved everything. And then they ask questions, and the amount of business that we're getting and new listing opportunities, because real estate agents want listings
Right.
on flyers, is honestly kind of shocking to me. But like everything else, you have to do it every single month, if not every 3 weeks or every 2 weeks. And on top of that, it's really expensive. So my cost per sale we talked about earlier on flyers is it's the highest acquisition of a client.
It's a new lead source.
It's
It's
a
new
new-
people for your database.
And that's what you want to have, that mix of repeat, referral, and new, and that's how you continue to grow every single year. Yeah, and flyers, just surprisingly to me, even I didn't realize how valuable they could be, but less people are doing them now.
Right.
So you have less competition in the mailbox. and they still work. They still work. But what I will say is you need to know the numbers going in. So if you're going to market to an area, you have to know how many homes are in that area, how many homes on average sell in that area every year. So what's your turnover rate? What percentage of the properties actually sell? On every time a property sells, there's a buy opportunity and there's a sell opportunity. You can get the listing, or you can bring the buyer for that property. There's two sides to each. Then you can even run it down to what's the average price.
You said, hold on. Before we started, you're like, this is my favorite topic, Mark. I could talk about this forever, and I feel like I can see why.
Yeah, I'm excited.
But I love it. The thought that's going through my head is it's clear that you have 9 years of experience, and you're probably just scraping the surface. 10 years, 20 years from now, you're gonna look back and be like, oh, that was nothing compared to what could be. What I'm reminded of is when we met right over there on your front driveway. You said that you started in your parents' basement.
Yeah.
When we first connected on the phone, you said that you worked for a year in someone else's office, and it wasn't a great experience. When we were talking earlier, you said it took you, 18 months or 2 years before you kind of got a coach and started to figure stuff out. Like, I can see, like, the numbers, you're like next level strategies and all this stuff, but I'm just reminded that you didn't start anywhere near where you are today. So, as we go to kind of wrap up the conversation, what I would be really curious is, what advice would you give year one Tom?
Don't compare year one Tom, your chapter 1, to somebody else's chapter 10. Right? So if you're watching this and you're in year 1 or in year 5 and you're not at the same level you want to be at yet, that's okay. I wasn't. It took, and once you start seeing growth, it's really hard to make that first $100,000, right? Or whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. Once you've hit it, then it's like, okay, I can do that. And then it's like, when like records are broken, then they get broken again and again and again and again. I really think that's what it is here. Like, we get in our own way. We create these limiting beliefs for ourselves. And if a lot of us could just realize and look up and be like, oh my God, there's such an opportunity here to really build something cool and work with people that you like and build a business that you love under your terms, by the way. Like, you really can do it the way you want to do it. It excites me to like share this because I think the opportunity is amazing. And we're talking specifically about real estate. There's opportunities in every business right now. It's just, it gets me really excited talking about it, because it's like, even when I first started, my goal was like, I was like, if I can make $100,000, my life will be great forever. That's all I ever want to make. That's it. That's what I want to do. Like, when I started in real estate, that was the goal. And then you pass it and you pass it and you pass it and you pass it and you keep building and building and building. And then it really has nothing to do, it kind of becomes a game, to be honest with you. It's like, if you take it too seriously, you're going to bog yourself down. When I track our team numbers, I don't put the zeros. I put just the number.
Okay.
I don't care about the zeros. I want to just know, like, where are we at here? If we're at $500,000, I just want 500. Okay. I don't want to see the zeros. That's too much pressure. I think there's just a massive opportunity. And if you're willing to put in the work, put in the time, put in the effort, and I think the difference between the people that are at the top of the industry and the people that are just getting by is patience. You have to let the systems work for you. Execution. You have to do the thing when you have the idea. Everyone I know that's super successful, it's like they get an idea, they're on it. Yeah. They're on it next week.
Yeah.
And then consistency, which we've talked about a million times. Patience, execution, consistency, I think, are the 3 things that are going to separate the top realtors from everybody else. And be easy to work with. Don't complicate
let's throw the 4th one in. Yeah. Let's not be jerks.
Yeah, just be easy to work with.
So you're at, $2.5 million. We'll see how the rest of the year goes or what have you. But what is that goal? What is that vision? What's next then?
Yeah, I've made it less about money recently. Like, I kind of treat that more like a game. I'm really just focused on, how do I build the life that I'm looking for? Someone once said to me, and this stuck out to me hard, he said, I've been to a lot of real estate agents' funerals, but never a retirement party.
Oh, ouch.
Because real estate agents they just fade off into the sunset. They don't give up their license, right?
Yeah.
I was like, okay, well, I know a lot of realtors that sell a ton of properties, but their lifestyle is really big or whatever, and they're always just selling to keep up with what they have. right? I want some peace, and I want to be able to wake up and know, like, okay, I own this thing 100%. And obviously my properties, I have mortgages on them and things like that, but I'm going to get there one day, right? And just know that, like, I built the business to service this lifestyle, right? Like, peace to me is waking up on Sundays, coming to the dock and having a coffee and looking at the water. And I know that means I've woken up that day and I'm doing what I'm trying to do. I know if I run the systems and build out the team and bring in more people and maybe even leverage myself out of it even more, I can build bigger numbers, and that's exciting. But at a certain point, once you're covered financially, the rest is kind of just gravy, truthfully.
To see my one-on-one with Mark Drager on how he built his $1 million plus company, check the video right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe. I'll see you there.
Hey there, I'm Mark Drager, and I sit down with Evan Carmichael in a 10-part series because I was able to build an over $1 million a year business.